Chapter 1194. The Third Era, the year 2790. In the low wooden house by the lake, Tyrion was sweating profusely. The hammer in his hand and the sword on the anvil made a ping 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 sound. In the blacksmith shop, dwarves were carrying buckets and charcoal to and fro. Outside the house, he could vaguely hear the sound of his elder brother negotiating with the human traders. Humans were treacherous, and human traders were even more treacherous. This kind of business with treacherous traders should be done by the clever second prince of Turin, but Tyrion really didn't want to face the question of how can a half-human have a dwarf for a father, from strangers. Tyrion Turin, a half-human, the illegitimate son of the king under the mountain, therein too. When he lived in Lonely Mountain, the dwarves didn't treat him differently. Only the humans liked to make a fuss about nothing. Although his wife had an illegitimate son with his half-human cousin, therein too didn't abandon his wife and son. Later, he had another son and daughter with his wife. A dwarf who loves gems is a real dwarf. A half-human who can't control his second son is a real half-human. This was a popular proverb among the dwarves and half-humans. The dwarves were already used to the illegitimate son of a half-human. A half-human male and a half-human female dwarf gave birth to a half-human female dwarf, and a half-human female dwarf gave birth to a half-human male dwarf. It was very magical. Dwarves and half-humans were very distinct, but they were also very close. The two groups had always been living together. The days in Lonely Mountain were very happy, but it didn't last long. Not long after, the evil dragon Smaug came. Tyrion only hated that his soul was transmigrated and he didn't bring the witchcraft of transforming into a demonic dragon. It was too tragic. At that time, the whole Lonely Mountain was like a burning furnace. Countless familiar relatives and friends were burned to ashes. His half-human father, dwarf grandmother, and dwarf mother, who were very good to him, all died in that catastrophe. He was young, only a teenager. His grandfather and father carried him out of the secret passage. But they escaped with their lives, and their family business was all gone. They could only wander around, forging ironware and selling it to human traders to make a living. 20 years passed in a flash. Oh no, oh no. The old king has been killed by the beast men. Suddenly, the sorrowful cry of an old dwarf came from afar. Tyrion hurriedly put down his hammer and ran out with his deformed short legs. Well, his legs were deformed and short, but his feet were bigger and stronger than those of the hobbits. Running barefoot on the muddy ground seemed to be able to obtain an endless supply of energy from the depths of the earth. Running dozens of miles didn't seem to be tiring at all. According to the old dwarf, this was a blessing given by Arcane to the half-humans to make up for their deformed limbs. "What's the matter?" he cried as he ran. Outside the courtyard, there were already many dwarves in shabby clothes gathered together. The weapons merchant with a big belly had not left yet. He stood out from the crowd and was very conspicuous. Whoa whoa! The female dwarves were crying, and the male dwarves were swearing. Tyrion squeezed through the crowd and saw his cheapskate father holding a white-haired head, his entire body trembling. His eldest brother, Sorin, and his third brother, Frelin, had red eyes, their faces filled with grief and anger. His younger sister, Dice, was hugging her two nephews and crying softly. He walked closer and saw that it was his grandfather's head. There was even a name carved on the face. Ah, so go. Who is he? Tyrion clenched his fists and roared while suppressing his anger. The beast man king of the Misty Mountains. The dwarf Enar, who had brought back the head of the previous king, cried. This is a provocation. The eldest, Sorin, gritted his teeth. No, this is not a provocation, this is a humiliation, a declaration of war. Tyrion walked to his cheapskate father. Father, we have no choice but to go to war. But we only have so few people left, and we definitely can't win if we fight head-on. We need allies. Send a letter to Iron Hill. Saran hugged her father's head and sobbed. Back then, Aoki created 7 dwarves, so there were 7 dwarven families in total. The royal family was the long-bearded dwarf Turin and his descendants. The dwarves lived in the mines of Moria in the Misty Mountains, the place where Gandalf met the Balrog in The Lord of the Rings, for thousands of years. Because the mines were too deep, the Balrog that was hiding deep underground was awakened. The Balrog that could only be used as cannon fodder in the First Era became a top-level boss in the Third Era. It defeated the entire dwarven race with its own strength. After escaping from Moria, the royal family of Turin was divided into 2 brothers. One was the main branch and settled in Lonely Mountain, the place where The Hobbit took place. The younger brother led the other branch and moved to Iron Hill in the east, the dwarves who came to Sauron's aid in The War of the 5 Armies. But in less than a few hundred years, there were too many treasures in Lonely Mountain, and it attracted Smaug. The royal family of Turin became refugees again, which was Tyrion and his group now. Even the prince had to work as a blacksmith to support his family. Originally, with 3 generations of ancestors and grandchildren still around, 3 generations living under the same roof, it could be considered a happy and harmonious life. But the old man's madness acted up, and he only brought 1 servant to Moria to reclaim the old capital. His head was chopped off by the orcs, and the name of the murderer was carved on his forehead. Tyrion glanced at the weapons merchants who were watching from the sidelines, and whispered, "Dad, we can send a letter to Uncle, but we can't let the Iron Hill dwarves take the lead. This is a blood feud between us, the dwarves of Lonely Mountain." He was only a half-human, so he didn't feel awkward saying this. "But we only have these few people," Selene said bitterly. Smelling the stench of the corpse, Tyrion sighed and said, "Let's bury grandfather first. We can discuss the recruitment later." 3 days later, Selene, his 3 sons, and a number of relatives and officials, in The Hobbit, the 12 dwarves who accompanied Thorin in reclaiming Lonely Mountain were all side branches of the royal family of Turin, gathered by the well in the backyard, and held a family meeting about revenge and future national policy. "Father, there are many people in the Black Barbarian land, human tribes in the wilderness, wandering dwarves and hobbits. You are the king, and you should take the people as your subjects," Tyrion said first. The main characters of the Second Era were the Númenóreans, and the main characters of the Third Era were still the Dendane people. Currently, there were only 2 kingdoms that could be considered civilized in Middle-earth, the North and the South, Arnor in the North, and Gondor in the South. Arnor was founded by Eärendil, a side branch of the Dendane royal family who survived the Great Cataclysm. Gondor blocked the gates of Mordor, and was founded by Isildur and his brother. Eärendil was Isildur's father, so the 2 kingdoms shared a monarch for a long time. Arnor and Gondor, which originated from the Númenóreans, were naturally the center of human civilization. The other places were very barren. For example, the Black Barbarian land where the Turin dwarves were wandering. Just from the name, one could tell how primitive the civilization was. But in reality, the Black Barbarian land was only a few hundred kilometers away from Rohan, the nomadic people in The Lord of the Rings, and Rohan was next to Gondor. If the Black Barbarian land was so barren, one could imagine how the other places were like. We can raise the flag of the Dwarven Emperor and recruit the dwarves as our direct subjects, expanding the base of the Turin royal family. The hobbits are also very short, and look like half-humans, so we can take them in as well. As for the humans, we can make them the vassals of the Dwarven Emperor, and guard the borders of the Dwarven lands. Tyrion became more and more excited as he spoke, and his ugly face turned red. The dwarves beside him were confused. "We are Turin dwarves, and the barbarian dwarves are not of the same race as us," Thorin said with a frown. "The hobbits are like half-humans, but they are not half-humans. Half-humans are the cousins of dwarves, but hobbits are not, Balin mumbled. His father, Thorlane, also shook his head and said, let's write to Uncle Grawl of the Iron Hill. My father is his brother, and he will not ignore this blood feud. Tirion remembered that the dwarves were famous for their stubbornness, and he was afraid that he would not be able to persuade them, so he said, how about this, let's learn from Grandpa and Uncle Grawl, and start splitting up now. My eldest brother will inherit the throne of the king under the mountain, and I will be the second son. Like Uncle Grawl, I will get a part of the family property and come out to work alone. I am not dead yet. And how old are you? You are only in your early 40s, how can you go out on your own? Thorlane glared at him. I didn't want to split up before, but Grandpa was beheaded by a half-orc, so I have to gather all forces for revenge, Tirion shouted. Actually, it is not a bad idea to split up now. Tirion has always been a restless person. If we split up, he will be less restrained, and you will also be less angry, Thorlane, Groin mumbled. He was one of the 12 dwarven warriors in The Hobbit, and also the father of the dwarf Gimli of the Ring Protection Team in The Lord of the Rings. At the same time, he was also part of the royal family of Turin. The dwarf king, who had lost his kingdom, thought about it carefully and felt that his brother's words made sense. He nodded and said hesitantly, but now we are poor, and have no property to give to Tirion. One Marilla, one lonely mountain. Brother, you pick first, and leave the rest to me, Tirion laughed. Sorin frowned and said, in the depths of Marilla, there is the Bane of Turin, the name given by the dwarves to the Balrog, and it is now occupied by the half-orcs. The lonely mountain has become Smaug's lair, and you will not get anything. I only want righteousness and hope. I will use righteousness to gather the people, and hope to arm the warriors. One day, I will make hope a reality, and righteousness will become the crown on my head, Tirion said. Good. You are indeed my son, you have ambition. The old dwarf king praised and clapped his hands. He turned to his eldest son and said, Sorin, you are the eldest son, you pick first. I was born in the lonely mountain, and I have never seen Marilla. I want to go home, Sorin murmured. All right, from today onwards, please call me King of Marilla, Tirion said in high spirits. What about me, father, eldest brother, second brother, what will I get? The third brother, Frelin, asked excitedly. You. Tirion looked at his younger brother's youthful face and said, I will be the king, and you will be the prince. Marilla is very big, and it runs through the Misty Mountains and connects the eastern and western continents. Each of us will guard one end. Haha, thank you, second brother, Frelin grinned foolishly. At first, all the dwarves thought that Tyrion's title of King of Marilla was a joke, but as he used the title of King of Marilla to recruit the first batch of 200 wandering dwarves from the Dark Barbarian, his cheap father's expression became serious, and the Turin dwarves stopped laughing behind his back. When Tirion incorporated the 200 wandering dwarves into his personal guards, and arranged 10 Turin dwarves as team leaders, and his younger brother Frelin as the commander, the other Turin dwarves began to look at the actions of this half-human dwarf king with cautious eyes. He asked Iron Hill's uncle to be the guarantor, and borrowed a large sum of money from the human merchants. He then used the money to buy supplies and food, and equipped 211 dwarven guards with goat mounts. After that, Tirion personally led the royal guards to sweep through the Dark Barbarian on a large scale. At first, he only wanted the dwarves. 2 years later, a small kingdom of 3,000 dwarves was established at the border between the Dark Barbarian and the Misty Mountains. With 3,000 dwarves, Tirion finally began to accept the barbarian tribes as his vassals. His method was very simple, he gave them iron tools and salt. No tribe could refuse iron tools, weapons, and salt as white as fine sand. 5 years later, King Marilla used the newly mined gold, silver, and gems to repay the loan from the human merchants, and tripled the amount. King Marila's reputation for being generous, honest, and trustworthy gradually spread to the nearby kingdoms. Chapter 1195. In order to avenge his father, the dwarf king Selene ran around and contacted all the dwarf tribes. After 9 years, he finally formed an army of 500 dwarves. In addition, the dwarves of the Iron Hill also agreed to send 800 dwarves as support. Of course, they didn't just contact their dwarven allies. They also went along the Misty Mountains from the north to the south, clearing out the small orc strongholds one by one. When he brought his eldest son Soren back to the dark barbarian land excitedly and prepared to call on his son to join the final battle, he was shocked at the gate of the dark barbarian dwarven kingdom. A dense army was marching out of the city. There was an endless army of dwarf goat cavalry, rows and rows of human heavy infantrymen in shining armor, and squads of human cavalrymen holding all kinds of banners. "Father, brother, you're finally here. If you came a few days later, second brother would have cleared out all the orcs in Moria himself." Third brother Frelin saw his dusty father and brother from afar. They rode a strong and tall black goat and ran over. "These years, we've been hunting orcs from the south to the north. Now, the orc king and his subordinates have all gathered near the mines of Moria." Soren looked at OL3's shining radiant armor and the powerful mountain goat he was sitting on. He then looked down at his old, dusty plate armor and the broken boots that revealed his feet. He felt very upset. These people, soldiers, where did they come from? What are they doing here? Old King Selene was confused. 1,500 goat knights were all the guards of the House of Turin. 3,000 heavy cavalry, they're also from the House of Turin. They're the army of the human vassals. The 2,000 light cavalry are also from the vassals' territories. There's also 3,000 Rohan hussars and 3,000 mercenaries from Gondor and other human kingdoms. This is already more than 10,000 people. Selene stuttered in disbelief. Even at the peak of the Turin dwarves, it was difficult to form an army of 10,000 dwarven warriors. Why are there so many vassals? Soren didn't understand. All the humans, hobbits in the dark barbarian land and the wanderers near the Misty Mountains have been gathered by second brother to farm around the capital. There's a total of 18 earls and 24 lords, more than 100,000 people. Transferring 5,000 soldiers won't affect production too much, Frelin said proudly. Why are the humans willing to pledge their loyalty to Tyrion? Soren was confused. Because the House of Turin is famous, because the King of Moria was passed down from the First Era, because my second brother was a meritorious person who broke the monopoly of the noble bloodline. Seeing the confusion on his father's and brother's faces, the third son explained, "Working for Emperor Gondor will at most earn the Emperor's verbal praise, and maintain an official position in the Empire for only 1 generation. If you work for us, you'll be rewarded. If you make a small contribution, you'll be rewarded with money." Second brother is even more generous than the Dengdan Emperor. If you make a big contribution, you'll be granted a title, hereditary title, and you'll be divorced from the country. Therefore, the humans are willing to serve the dwarf king. But there are so many human nobles. Is this still the dwarven kingdom? Soren frowned. Anyway, humans like to live on the plains, and we dwarves live in caves. We don't interfere with each other, and it's a win-win situation if we work together, third brother said disapprovingly. Selene nodded and said, "When we were in Lonely Mountain, we also got along well with the humans in Long Lake Town. We dwarves want mountains, while humans want plains." Why did the Rohan cavalry also come? Then, he asked again. 2 years ago, second brother personally went to Rohan and had a good talk with the cavalry king. They formed an alliance to fight against the half-orcs. They can do that. Old Wong murmured. Not only Rohan, but also the large tribes and small kingdoms near the Misty Mountains were roped in by second brother. Everyone agreed on a time to encircle and suppress the half-orcs together. The half-orcs are not only the enemies of the dwarves, but also all humans. The enemy of an enemy is not necessarily a friend, but there's always the possibility of cooperation. Frelin, you've grown up. Old Wang stroked his long beard with relief. It's all second brother's teaching. Where's Tyrion? Old Wang turned his head and looked around. The task of commanding the troops was given to me and Balin. Second brother should still be practicing in the palace. Practicing? Old Wang's face suddenly changed, and he said sternly, "What I said in the past." He ignored it. The Dark Demon King's sorcery is a demonic art, and it can't be practiced. Why didn't he listen? Why didn't you persuade him? Frelin said disapprovingly, "Father, we have to face the Balrog, the nemesis of Turin. Normal power is useless. Even at the peak of the Turin dynasty, they still couldn't defend Marilla. Now, we can't even see the tail of the peak. If we don't find other ways, how can we succeed?" Also, in the era when the Dark Demon King ruled the world, the great emperor of Gondor, Isildur, could become the greatest hero because he practiced the sorcery sword manual. Soren thought, and he gradually agreed with the choice of his second brother and third brother. Without the sorcery sword manual, Isildur couldn't defend Gondor, and he couldn't end the Dark Demon King's rule. Without the sorcery sword manual, even if Tyrion could drive away the half-orcs, he couldn't defeat the nemesis of Turin. Without the sorcery sword manual, he couldn't drive away Smaug and take back his home in the Lonely Mountain. Second brother is practicing the sorcery sword manual. Did second brother cut off his penis? Selene exclaimed. No, the sorcery sword manual is the secret of the royal family of Gondor. Normal people can't see it. Also, second brother said that the sorcery sword manual is all about speed. The Dark Demon King's weakness is fleeting, so it needs to be fast. But the nemesis of Turin doesn't have any obvious weakness. We can't get close to it, and we can't break its defense. No matter how fast it is, it's useless. What kind of sorcery is Tyrion practicing? Soren asked. Frelin jumped down from the goat and whispered to his elder brother, Frost Axe. Soren looked at his father. You are very knowledgeable. Have you ever heard of this sorcery? It seems to be related to ice. It can counter the nemesis of Turin, and it can even counter the fire dragon. Where did he find such a high-level secret manual? Although it's easy to fall into darkness by practicing sorcery, each secret manual represents an ultimate power, and each ultimate power can only have one master. The more powerful the ultimate power, the more precious the secret manual is, and the less likely it is to be passed down. Selene frowned. Second brother bought it from a street stall. It's not a lost secret manual. Once the secret manual is passed down, there are too many people practicing it. Everyone is competing for the ultimate power. Shaking his head, Old Wang laughed. I'm thinking too much. Even if the secret manual is open for everyone to practice, not everyone has the right to master the ultimate power. Father, you keep talking about the ultimate power. What is it? Soren was confused. Frelin also looked at his father curiously. It was also his first time hearing about the ultimate power. The ultimate power is the upper limit of sorcery. It's a power that only gods can master. The power of gods. How strong is it? Soren was stunned. Then he complained, if we practiced sorcery since we were young, we might have the power to chase Smaug away. It's been 30 years. We've abandoned our country for 30 years. Old Wang shook his head and sighed. The ultimate power is essentially the power of the Dark Demon King who died in battle. The deeper you practice sorcery, the easier it is to connect with the will of the Dark Demon King, and the easier it is for you to fall into darkness. If you lose your mind and your will is twisted, what's the use of having the strongest power? Also, the ultimate power is not invincible. In fact, in the ancient times, there were often mortals who killed the dark demon king who had the ultimate power. It's such a waste to lose your mind and humanity for a less powerful power. I heard that Turin's nemesis was very common in the ancient times. Solon asked blankly. Even in the ancient times, Turin's nemesis was at the level of a dark demon king, Selene said seriously. You said it yourself. Mortals often killed dark demon kings. Are you saying that all of us dwarves combined can't compare to the mortals who often appeared in the ancient times? Solon said bitterly. It's not like that. Selene waved his hand and smiled bitterly. In the ancient times, we dwarves could also kill Turin's nemesis. Many dark demon dragons died in the hands of dwarves. Not to mention Smaug, even the ancestor of the Megalosaurus, Glorung, sigh, times have changed. The power of magic is getting weaker year by year. Even the elves who are supposed to live forever are dying like mortals. The elves are dying of old age. Solon and his brother exclaimed. Selene's eyes flashed and said in a low voice, Solon, you are my successor. I'm not sure if I can survive the battle with the orcs this time. There are some secrets that I should tell you. That's right. Since the beginning of the Third Era, the power of us and the elves has been greatly weakened. The elves can still live forever because they have the 3 elven rings. Magic, ring? Solon's expression changed. Selene nodded slightly. The Third Era is coming to an end. I have a feeling that the supreme magic pants will appear soon. If the pants are destroyed, all the rings of power will lose their magic power. By then, the elves will have to leave Middle-earth. Father. Solon said hesitantly, we Turin dwarves also have a ring of power, right? You can't use it. The Dark Demon King has already returned. Selene said sternly. Solon's face flashed with disappointment and asked in a muffled voice, Father, you know so many secrets. Are you also a member of the White Path Association? Can you ask the white-robed wizard Saruman to help us fight against the demon dragon and Turin's nemesis? I'm not familiar with Saruman. During the era of Moria, the king of Turin dwarves was a temporary member of the White Path Association. After the Lonely Mountain fell, he even lost his status as an observer. The old dwarf king's expression was bleak, a king who can't even protect his own kingdom. What right does he have to protect Middle-earth? These secrets were all told to me by your grandfather. Our ancestors also knew about them. At that time, the Turin dwarves could decide the fate of the world. Father, I also want to learn the secret book of sorcery. I must take revenge on Smaug. Soren gritted his teeth and said. Selene looked at the neat army and said with a determined gaze, let's put Smaug aside first. This time, we must kill the Orc King Azog and take revenge for your grandfather. Tyrion spent 9 years to prepare an army of 11,000 dwarves and humans. What did it mean in Middle-earth? In the War of the 5 Armies in The Hobbit, the total number of dwarves was only 500. The number of elves and humans in Long River Town was definitely less than 500. In the Lord of the Rings' famous Battle of Helm's Deep, Rohan's army was less than 300. The number of elves was also less than that. What looked like hundreds of thousands of orcs was actually only 10,000. After that, the Battle of Whitetown was the most magnificent battle in the Lord of the Rings. It looked like there were at least 100,000 of them. No. Whitetown's guards were about 2,000 to 3,000, and Rohan's cavalry was about 6,000. The orcs that covered the plains outside the city were massacred by 6,000 cavalry, which meant that there were less than 30,000 of them. It looked like there were a lot of people in the movie, but it was all an illusion. The Chinese director could make a battle of hundreds of thousands of people look like gangsters fighting, but the foreigners could make a battle of millions of people that decided the fate of the world. Therefore, even if Tyrion's army of 10,000 was placed in the final battle of the Lord of the Rings at the end of the era, it could still change the fate of the world. At that time, his army was almost invincible. King Tyrion, the ruler of Moria. When Tyrion chopped off Azog's head with his axe and stood on the stone steps in front of the gate of Moria, he raised the head high. The cheers of the dwarves and humans shook the sky and reverberated far away in the valley. Tyrion's army was armed to the teeth. Marilla's orcs were less than 4,000, and they were still lacking in armor and weapons. Cirine's vengeful battle, which she had been prepared to die for, had turned out to be a crushing victory. Azog dared to humiliate the Turin dwarves, humiliate my grandfather. I will never forget this hatred. I will wrap his head in gold and use it as a chamber pot. I will put it in a public toilet so that all the dwarves can come and pee in it. Tyrion held the head in his left hand and the axe in his right as he roared at his subjects with a ferocious expression. Long live King Tyrion. The dwarves were getting more and more excited. Chapter 1196. Autumn, year 3001 of the Third Age. The greenery faded, and the golden color slowly crept into the peaceful Shire. The setting sun dyed the western sky red. Sam had just finished planting the new myrtle. When he stood up, he saw Pippin and Merry hurriedly running past the fence. As they ran, they excitedly shouted, "Elven singers!" Where did the elven singers come from? Sam could not help but ask. Life in the Shire was very monotonous. He had lived for more than 30 years and had only seen a few human singers, let alone an elven singer. Pippin slowed down his pace, but continued to pull Merry forward. As they ran, he quickly said, "Two wandering bards have come to the Green Dragon Tavern. Although their attire is strange, they are very knowledgeable. They can sing any song, tell any story, and sing very well. I think they are the best singers in the world." When the hooded woman sang Lucian's song, Merry and Rose both cried. I couldn't understand it, but I couldn't help but cry. I don't believe you will cry, Merry said doubtfully. It's true. They only sing a song for a gold coin. You won't hear it if you're late. If it weren't for this rare opportunity, I wouldn't have left the tavern to find you. Pippin's figure and voice gradually faded away. Sam wiped the sweat off his forehead and hurriedly carried his farming tools into the hole at the bottom of the sack. Master Burbo, the myrtle has been planted. I'll go back now. Burbo answered casually. The door of the bedroom next door opened, and Frodo poked his head out. He asked curiously, I heard Pippin say that two bards came to the Green Dragon Tavern. Yes. Master Frodo, do you want to go and take a look? No elven singers have ever come to the Shire. Sam bowed respectfully. Hobbits were quiet, but it did not mean that they did not distinguish between rich and poor. Frodo was interested. Uncle Burbo, an elven singer, came to the Green Dragon Tavern. I haven't seen an elf before. Don't wait for me for dinner. The elven singer's story might not be as interesting as mine. Old Burbo muttered softly as he stared at an old map of the north in a daze. Meanwhile, Frodo and Sam had already run out of the outer courtyard. Although the stories of the ancient era's elves are marvelous, they are too distant from us. I want to hear the story of the Berserk Ice Axe. As soon as Sam opened the tavern door, he heard Redbeard Hank shouting. The tavern was full of hobbits, and they were all looking at the southwest corner. The two bards were very conspicuous among the hobbits. One of them was a mysterious man with a hood covering his face, and the other was a tall old elf with white hair and a face full of sorrow. Ice Axe. Could it be the king of the dwarves of Moria, Tyrion? Frodo asked excitedly. Sam said uncertainly, maybe. The hobbits of the Shire rarely paid attention to the outside world, but the Dwarven King was too famous. He was the most famous, legendary, and greatest dwarven hero in the past 200 years. Well, although he was a half-human. Especially since he was a half-human, it made him feel more like a hobbit. The Shire had many idols, such as Master Frodo. To be honest, when Sam was a child, he used to hold a wooden axe and growl in a low voice, "Azog, your head is only fit to be my chamber pot." Or, Turin's nemesis, "I swear to the gods that one day, I'll be your nemesis." Or, "Ha ha ha ha, Turin's nemesis, the bloody light of the eye of Angorian that shrouds you will be my banner of victory." Or, "Smaug, my axe is thirsty for blood." Or, "There are many stories about the king of the dwarves, Tirion." Which one do you want to hear? The hooded woman's pleasant voice pulled Sam out of his memories. "I want to hear the story of the king of the dwarves fighting against Turin's nemesis." Did the king of the dwarves really use Azog's head as a chamber pot? Will you leak your urine? I want to hear about the battle of the Dragon Slayer. The tavern immediately became noisy. Many fat hobbits who were less than 90 centimeters tall slammed the table, knocked on the wine glasses, and stomped their feet. "I'll tell the story to the one who pays," the hooded woman laughed. "1 gold coin is too expensive," the fat hobbits whined. Master Frodo was rich. He threw a gold coin from afar and shouted, "Is Turin's nemesis dead or not? Did Tirion fulfill his promise?" "I've heard many different stories, and the ending is different." Sam did not see what the hooded woman did, and the gold coin disappeared. Gondor's White Town was not built in a day, and Turin's nemesis was not defeated in a single battle. Starting from the Battle of Dark Creek Valley and killing Azog, Tirion conquered Turin's nemesis 15 times in the next 150 years. 15 times. The hobbits all covered their mouths and exclaimed. Outside the east gate of Moria is the Dark Creek Valley, a fertile land. Tirion set his capital in the valley and found a small mountain nearby as a mining area for the dwarves. After 10 years of hard work, he led the fully armed dwarves into the depths of Moria and alerted the underground demons. Boom! The hooded woman waved her hand, and a cloud of colorful smoke exploded and filled the tavern hall. A picture appeared in front of the fat hobbits. Roar! The Balrog bellowed angrily. Ah! The hobbits screamed, and their faces turned pale. Run, the demons are coming. Fat Sam grabbed Master Frodo and was about to run out of the tavern. But when he turned, the Balrog also turned. It was still in front of him, roaring ferociously. Ah! Fat Sam fell to the ground. His sister Mary pulled him and whispered, "Don't run. This is the poem of the first poet." What? Sam was confused. Look at Master Frodo. Calm down and listen carefully, Mary said. Sam glanced at Frodo. Frodo's eyes were blank, but there was a shocked expression on his face. Gradually, after calming down, Sam heard the hooded poet's voice again. He had never heard such a melodious, mellow, and emotional song. It seemed that there were also many musical instruments mixed in. When he heard the music, his mind couldn't help but picture scrolls, as if he was in the real world. It was the first time he saw the real face of Turin's nemesis. It was terrifying. It was the first time he saw the Battle of the Frost Axe. It was terrifying. A 1.2-meter-tall half-human and an 8-meter-tall flame demon were moving back and forth on the narrow path. On both sides of them were bottomless cliffs. Sam's legs turned to jelly. Defeated. The Dwarven King's armor was shattered by the flame whip. The frost axe was broken. His body was charred black, and white smoke came out of his mouth. He was carried out of Moria by the defeated dwarven warriors. "I swear, I will be back." The dwarven king's resolute eyes moved Sam. The song became lively, and the picture sped up. Sam saw how the dwarven king trained hard for 10 years. The second expedition began. The third time, the fourth time, unlike the heroes in the other stories, the dwarven king kept fighting. He was never discouraged and never gave up. Even the most serious injuries could not shake his fighting spirit. When the dwarven king and his brothers chopped off the flame demon's head for the 15th time, Sam's eyes were filled with tears. He felt satisfied and carefree. This is a real hero with blood and tears. Sam heard Frodo sobbing. "How is it?" "I was right, wasn't I?" Pippin said proudly. "She is indeed the best bard in the world." "I have never seen anyone stronger than her," Merry said excitedly. "But it is a little expensive. I want to hear more." He touched the few copper coins in his pocket and looked at Frodo longingly. Frodo was indeed a master. He immediately threw out another gold coin. "I want to hear the story of the dragon slaying on the lonely mountain." Sam's eyes widened. He still could not see how the gold coin was taken away. Soon, the music started. He was subconsciously immersed in the story. "Ah, Master Burbo." Sam saw his employer in the music that was as clear as the flowing water of an icy spring. Although he was not younger, the expression on his face and eyes were obviously more immature. He remembered. 60 years ago, old Bilbo had experienced an unexpected but fantastic journey. So he followed the dwarves to slay the dragon in the lonely mountain. "How brave!" Sam exclaimed. Moria was Tyrion's capital. Thorin's kingdom was in the lonely mountain. There was not a moment when he did not want to go back to his hometown, although Moria was the real ancestral land of the Turin dwarves. But what his younger brother said made sense. If they could not even defeat Turin's nemesis, how could they defeat the demon dragon Smaug? In fact, it was hard to tell who was stronger between the demon dragon and the flame demon without fighting. But for the dwarves, Smaug could fly. If they lost the battle, they could not even escape. Tyrion lost 14 battles against the flame demon. But every time, he could escape unscathed without losing too many soldiers. Because the flame demon did not dare to chase them out of the cave and would not even stray too far from the deep pit, the dwarves could easily set up traps and narrow escape routes. When Tyrion Cold Axe Turin chopped off the flame demon's head, the Turin royal family officially started the Lonely Mountain strategy. Tyrion's initial idea was to use the blood witchcraft to extract the power of the flame demon's corpse and cultivate the fire elemental witchcraft's secret book. While cultivating the divine fire technique, he would choose the dwarven divine craftsman to create a batch of dragon-slaying equipment. For example, the iron mask used by the ancient dwarves to fight against Glorung. Then, he would send messengers to Long River Town to form an alliance with the humans there and provide funds to arm the humans. Finally, the dwarves would send out their troops in autumn. After arriving at Long Lake Town, they would train the dragon-slaying formation with the humans while waiting for the day of heavy snow in winter. Ambushing Smaug in the coldest weather. The right time, the right place, and the right people. Not only were Thorin, Celion, and the other Turin dwarves convinced, even the visiting White Way Association member, Gandalf the Grey, was full of praise for the half-human king's wisdom. Well, Tyrion had just snatched Gandalf's monster. P.S. When Gandalf came over and invited the Dwarf King to once again be a temporary member of the White Way Association. Gandalf could not be blamed for being snobbish. The White Way Association was a public welfare organization. There was only effort and no return. Previously, the dwarves could not even take care of themselves and were indeed unable to take out more resources to protect world peace. What kind of technique are you preparing to cultivate? Gandalf sized up the half-human on the throne with a scrutinizing gaze. Seeing that the face that was as ugly as the other half-humans did not show the usual ruthlessness and irritation of those who cultivated witchcraft, the wizard was slightly relieved. It had been 3,000 years since Sauron spread the witchcraft technique among the Dawn on a large scale. Witchcraft cultivation had become the norm among humans. Gandalf was already used to it. All witchcraft secret books are not divided into high and low levels because the final power is almost equal. Therefore, I plan to cultivate the fiery palm that can be found on the streets, Tirion said. Chapter 1197. The reason why the blazing palm is so widely spread is because it is related to the great enemy of the Dark Universe, Gandalf said meaningfully. Morgoth. The old dwarf king exclaimed. The wizard nodded lightly. The mysterious demon king in the shadows hopes that the former Morgoth will return to the world, so he distributed the secret books that represent him everywhere. The blazing palm, magic flame body, and other fire elemental spells with different names are essentially the same. They just have different names and different characteristics of fire. The ultimate achievement is to summon Morgotha's power and spirit into one's body. Not only fire elemental spells, but King Tyrion's Frosty Sky Axe is also one of Morgotha's powers. He's dead, Tyrion frowned. But his spirit lives on. I'm still far from the ultimate power, Tyrion said. I believe that. His Majesty is clear-headed and wise. There are no signs of him being shrouded by the magic shadow. I just want to remind you that the disadvantages of elemental spells outweigh the advantages. You must be very careful and not be blinded by power, Gandalf advised sincerely. Thank you for your advice. I'll remember it. Tyrion was very respectful because he knew that the other party was Maya and also the representative of Valinor. To be honest, he was even a little afraid of the old wizard. He was afraid that he would discover his identity as a transmigrator and that he would lose everything he had now. In the early years, he had hoped that his sister would come and find him or reveal some information. After all, she was the one who had sent him here, although that she was not her. But she never came. There were no traces of her existence in this world. Perhaps there were, but he did not discover it. Since he could not find his sister, he could only live his life in his current identity. Gradually, he didn't want her to disturb his happy life. He was living a good life now. He did not know if she had done something, but he did not feel isolated from this world and this identity at all. The affection between father, brother, and sister was very real. He was very touched and cherished it. On the other hand, his previous identities, Jaime and Cersei, his two fathers who were tortured in hell, had become blurry illusions. It was very unreal, like a dream from yesterday. Perhaps he didn't transmigrate, but was reincarnated. How long will it take to master the fire palm? Gandalf's voice brought Tyrion back to reality. The cultivation of martial arts is extremely slow. To achieve something, it would take at least 10 years. 30 years would be safer. Anyway, we have Marilla now. Such a big kingdom is enough for us brothers to live in. Lonely Mountain won't run away, so there's no rush. Tyrion said. Sauron, who was sitting beside him on the throne, wanted to say something but hesitated. Tyrion treated him well. Not only did he give him the title of Prince of Dark Creek Valley, but he also gave the three brothers their thrones in a row during court meetings. His father sat at the top, while the three brothers sat below. But for some reason, he missed Lonely Mountain and wanted to be the king himself. I'm afraid we'll have to hurry. Gandalf sighed and said slowly, in the past few hundred years, I've been tracking the Dark Demon King's whereabouts. Now I've confirmed that he intends to form a dark alliance with Smaug. He's in the south, and Smaug is in the north. They'll form a pincer attack on the kingdom of the good people of Middle-earth. Wasn't the Dark Demon King destroyed by Isildo at the end of the last era? When I was still an observer in the White Way Association, Saruman, King Elrond, Queen Galadriel, and you all said so. Old King Selene was shocked. We were wrong. Gandalf said bitterly, about 2,000 years ago, traces of necromancers appeared in the Aramunk region. Think about the ringwraiths. The demonic dragon is evil, and it's only a matter of time before he is lured into the darkness. That's why we have to act immediately. According to the original plan, it would take more than 10 years for the dwarves to be fully prepared. By then, the Lonely Mountain would have already become a stinky fortress for the orcs. If the demonic dragon and the orcs work together, your chances will be even slimmer. The wizard is right. Tirion looked at the old dwarf and his two brothers. Then let's fight. The third brother, Frelin, shouted. Of course we have to fight. The problem is, how are we going to kill the demonic dragon? Thorin said helplessly. The old dwarf king looked at Gandalf and said in a low voice, 170 years ago, the Turin dwarves tried, but even the sharpest swords and arrows couldn't hurt the demonic dragon. Now, although my 3 sons are brave, they are still mortal. Does the great wizard have a plan? I saw the omen of the demonic dragon's death. Gandalf said mysteriously. 60 years later, in the Green Dragon Tavern, the story of a dragon slaying in the Lonely Mountain was still ongoing. Gandalf, that old wizard, is crazy. He actually asked us to hire a hobbit as a burglar. Frodo was angry and embarrassed when he saw the dwarves mocking his uncle in the hole at the bottom of the bag. He was angry because of the rude dwarves and embarrassed because of his uncle's weakness and lack of resistance. Only when Uncle Bilbo's bravery and loyalty was recognized by Prince Thorin, did Frodo's solemn expression fade away and became relaxed and happy again. So the Dark Demon King had already discovered Gandalf's plan. He even reminded Smaug to destroy his weakness as soon as possible, a black arrow that could kill the demonic dragon and the missing scale on its left chest. Even though Frodo already knew the result, he still couldn't help but worry for his uncle and the dwarves when he saw Smaug raiding the River Cove town and stealing the black arrow from the archer bard. He then threw it into the dwarves' furnace and burned it. He even found the mithril chain mail of the Turin dwarves in the treasure vault and used it to cover the missing scale. Bilbo is so agile. He's so fast that I can't even see his shadow. Suddenly, Frodo shouted in surprise. The burglar had stealthily passed by Smaug and came to the corner of the treasure vault. He then took the melted black iron ingot and put it into his pocket. Even when the demonic dragon woke up and flew into a rage, it didn't notice the burglar that was close to it. Wow, Master Bilbo is so good at hiding. He's so good at hiding. Sam was shocked. Master Bilbo's face mask is so disgusting, Pippin murmured. That water towel is a little strange. Hey, Big Strider, why are you here? Merry found herself suddenly covered by a thick and tall shadow. She turned around and saw a human man with shoulder-length black hair and an unshaven beard. He was a human who lived near Bree. She didn't know when he came here. Because he was so big, the hobbits in the Shire called him Big Strider. At this moment, Big Strider was no longer lazy and dispirited. The fierce expression on his face made the little hobbit a little scared. What's wrong? Merry asked in a low voice. Big Strider lowered his head and looked at her. His expression softened a little, but his eyes were still as sharp as a sword. He stared at the hooded singer who had become agitated. With the help of Gandalf the Grey, the dwarves reforged the black iron that had the magic power to kill the dragon. This time, it wasn't a black arrow but a black sword. It was a thick, black two-handed sword. The black arrow was originally more than 2 meters long. Long live Tirion. Long live Thorin! Long live Bilbo! The hobbits cheered excitedly. Thorin risked his life to lift Smaug's mithril chainmail. Tirion flew up and stabbed the dragon's left chest with his black sword. Wonderful. In the tavern, the hobbits were more satisfied than ever. When we go back, I'm going to ask my mother to sew me a water towel like Bilbo's. I want it to be golden too, Pippin said excitedly. I want one too. Sam murmured. Who are you? How do you know so much about it? Sam looked up and saw Big Strider striding in front of the hooded singer. His expression was cold, and his right hand was even on the hilt of his sword. The dull elf holding the harp saw Big Strider's right hand, and a glimmer of light seemed to appear in her indifferent eyes. The Ring of Ferrigan. Big Strider frowned and said, You know it. Who are you? I'm the world's #1 singer. The one beside me is the #2 singer and also my servant. If you want to know who he is, it's simple. Take out a gold coin and order the song, The World's #2 Singer. Chapter 1198. Big Strider threw a gold coin to the hooded man. Then, sad music started playing. Everyone was immersed in the sad song of Prince Nodo. Ah, it's an ancient elf. Big Strider was shocked. Is there still a Prince Nodo in the Middle Land? When the song ended, the hooded man said faintly, Isn't the most honorable and powerful elf queen an ancient elf princess? Even your servant is a prince of the Norder elves. Who are you? Big Man Boo asked with a serious expression. I'm the mysterious man, the observer and singer of stories in the human world. Big Strider, the hooded man smiled and said, We are fated to meet. Oh, no, I'm fated to meet the owner of Balahan's ring. I've met him more than 10 times. Big Strider looked down at the ring on his finger and asked, How many of my ancestors have you met? I can sing Balahan's ring for you, the mysterious man said. So, Big Strider took out another gold coin. Ah, so many of Turin's nemesis. What kind of war is this? The scene played in everyone's mind with the music was just a small part of the Battle of Sudden Fire. Balahan led his people to form a human wall in front of Morgotha's army to cover the retreat of the king of Nargotha. But even though it was just a battle, there were more than 1 or 2 fire demons. However, the nemesis of Turin was blocked by hundreds of humans. Is it the nemesis of Turin that got stronger or the humans that got weaker? The hobbit was confused. I didn't know that Balahan's ring had such a glorious history. Big Strider was shocked when he saw the Elf King give the ring to Balahan. Then, he saw Balahan use the ring to ask Balahan to fulfill his oath. In the end, the Elf King died on Demon Wolf Island. He only got a few words about the ring of Balahan from Lord Elrond, because there were many details that even Elrond did not know. Elrond was Bairon's great-grandson. When the music stopped, the hobbits started to sob. They were touched by the bravery of Balahan and Balahan, but they also felt sorry for the brave Balahan. Seeing Balin crying over Ferrigan's body, they could not help but shed tears as well. Big Strider went back and asked the bartender for a glass of ale. He lit his pipe and, like the other hobbits, let himself wander in the singer's story and the ancient and true emotions brought by it. At midnight, the hobbits were tired and hungry. Most importantly, their pockets were empty, and they had no money to buy songs. Only then did they reluctantly leave. Mysterious #1 singer, will you still be here tomorrow? I'll bring more money tomorrow. Frodo kept looking back as he walked. The hooded man smiled but said nothing. After the crowd dispersed, the tavern owner came over to ask if he wanted to book a room and generously said that he would give the next day's breakfast for free. Big Boo pushed the fat hobbit aside and said in a deep voice, "Recently, there have been many spies of the Dark Demon King approaching the Shire." The hooded man glanced out the window and vaguely saw Chong Chong's figure flash by. Sigh, every demon lord spy near Charles has been eliminated. Even a fool would understand that there's a problem here. Danny sighed. Well, the bard was Danny with the second son of the Fenrid family. The third era was coming to an end, and this era's calamity was different from the previous ones. Elves and magic had completely retired from the stage of history, and the world would undergo an unobservable but very intense change. Danny felt that the first, second, and third eras could be combined into one era. At such an important moment, she could not bear the loneliness and went to the Shire to wander. "Are you also here to inquire about the news?" Big Strider looked serious. "Do you think I still need to inquire?" Big Strider was silent for a while and sighed. "You know everything, so you don't need to inquire or test." "But why are you here?" "For you." "Me?" Big Strider was confused. "You have also heard the song of Balin and Lucian before. How do you feel?" Big Boo was stunned for a while before he mumbled, "It's very delicate, very real, and very touching. It's even better than Lucian's song that I've heard before." "Why is it so good?" Danny asked again. "Because." Big Strider frowned. "Because it's delicate, because it's real, and because it touches people's hearts. Because I watched your two ancestors go through life and death together, hand in hand, and the lovers finally get married. I even interviewed them. So, my poems are delicate, real, and touching. Other singers rely on other people's words and their own imagination. They can't compare to me at all. Now, the third union between humans and elves is about to happen. I don't want to miss such a good story." Danny laughed in a low and creepy voice. "You know Arwen and I." "Ah, you still want to interview me?" Big Strider realized what was going on and was dumbfounded. "Sigh, today's story is like yesterday's repeat, but I want to see how different you are. Aragon and Arwen, Balin and Lucian, the human hero and the elven princess, the elven king's father-in-law who broke up the couple, and the extravagant betrothal gifts that made ordinary people flinch." Danny suddenly understood why Aravita was willing to accept Tyrion and give him the destiny of being the son of an era. Indeed, this world lacked variables, especially variables that could lead to better outcomes. Big Strider secretly made a gesture, and the Dendan shadow guards outside the Green Dragon Inn quietly retreated. Yes, ever since the Supreme Demon Pants were obtained by the Hobbit, Seal had been protected by the human Emperor's shadow guards for the past 60 years. Big Strider was Aragon, the leader of the Dendan tribe, and the legal successor of Gundor and Arnor. Seal and the Baggins family had always been under his and Gandalf's protection. Looking at the movies, The Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit, one would feel that the characters in the movies were very realistic and the story was like a fairy tale. In fact, the story behind the story was rarely shown in the movies. If one transmigrated to The Lord of the Rings, and wanted to chat with Seal and Bilbo, or simply replace him and join Thorin and Gandalf's unexpected journey, or give the ring to Frodo. These were all crazy actions. Bilbo and Frodo's position in The Lord of the Rings was similar to Tang Sanzang's position in The Journey to the West. If one said that one was stronger than Tang Sanzang and wanted to replace him to go to the West to retrieve the Buddhist scriptures, would Tathagata agree? Today was Bilbo's 111th birthday. Seal held a grand birthday party, and even his old friend Gandalf rushed over to congratulate him. However, the old man grabbed the golden saliva towel around his neck and was a little unhappy. "Old man, you don't seem happy. Could it be that you can't bear to leave Seal and Frodo?" Gandalf blew a big smoke ring into the sky and asked leisurely. Look, the old burglar pointed at the hobbit children running around on the lawn of the party. Every child was wearing the same golden saliva towel as him. They even covered their faces and shouted, "I'm Seal Burbo, the strongest burglar in the world. Smog, I'm here to steal your treasure." You finally became the hero of the hobbits," the grey-robed wizard said vaguely as he bit on his pipe. Burbo clenched the saliva towel hanging on his chest tightly and said excitedly, "That bard knows. She knows my secret. I haven't been able to sleep well these few days. I'm afraid that she'll steal my treasure." Gandalf rolled his eyes and blew out a donut smoke. "Don't worry. Even if you give your treasure to her with both hands, she won't even look at it." "Nonsense. Who can refuse my treasure?" Old Burbo straightened his neck and said. "She's gone. She left Seal with Big Strider. I think she's hiding somewhere and spying on me." The old burglar looked around nervously. "Today is your birthday. It's also Frodo's coming-of-age ceremony when he's 33 years old. You've decided to leave everything to him. Why are you still worried that the bard will miss your treasure?" Gandalf said softly. Burbo was stunned. "Yes, my story is over, although it seems like it happened yesterday," the old hobbit said sadly. "You can start a new journey. Last year when I passed by Moria, old Tirion was still muttering about coming to Seal to visit you." "Oh, will Tirion and the rest come?" Burbo asked excitedly. Gandalf shook his head. "I told him that the reputation of the Axe King was too great. If he went to Seal, he would attract the attention of the Magic Shadow. Only then did he give up the idea." "I see. I haven't seen them for 60 years. Burbo said sadly. "They can't come, but you can go." Burbo's eyes lit up. "Yes." That night, after Burbo finished his speech at the banquet, he pulled up the saliva towel around his neck and covered his face in full view of the crowd. He laughed and disappeared in front of the crowd. "This is the real #1 burglar in the world who comes and goes without a trace." The old burglar left Seal that night. Before he left, he went back home and reluctantly left the saliva towel behind. The first ring-bearer retired and the second ring-bearer took over. Until 19 years later, when Lord Frodo was over 50 years old, more and more spies of the Magic Lord entered Seal. There were even terrifying Black Knights. The ring-bearer mode could no longer be maintained. Gandalf decided to reopen the White Way to decide the ownership of the magic pants. Well, before the ring-bearer entered Seal to look for Baggins, Gandalf did not want to destroy the One Ring. He only wanted to rely on the Hobbit's talent of high moral integrity to secretly protect the One Ring from generation to generation. The decision to destroy the One Ring was made by many kings after Elrond held the Valley Hero Assembly. Winter 3018 of the Third Era, Mordor, Barad-dûr Fortress at the end of the Ashes Mountains. "I feel uneasy. What happened recently? Saruman is really useless." Not only did he not persuade Gandalf to surrender, he even let him escape, Big Eye said sullenly. 100 years ago, the White Way ambushed Mordor. The King of Sauron gave up his body and became the Eye of Mordor. One Gandalf is not enough to affect the overall situation, Dany said perfunctorily. She was thousands of miles away and the Big Eye communicated with her through its will projection. This was the beauty of turning into the Big Eye. It could control the Dark Army from a distance, observe the whole world, and even cast magic from a long distance. Especially the bewitching depravity magic that penetrated the mind, the effect was very strong. Since it could not defeat a mortal hero even if it turned into a human, it might as well give up on the idea of close combat and stay at the back as a brain monster. Not only Gandalf, my supreme magic pants have reappeared in the world. I am looking forward to it but also afraid. The doomsday volcano that I drained of its earth fire also erupted 50 years ago. It just had to happen at this time, at the end of the Third Era. The big eye flashed fiercely, showing that the king of Soren was not calm. Chapter 1199. 3,000 years after the Third Era, the appearance of the Supreme Demon Pants, the eruption of Mount Doom, the White Tao Association holding a meeting about the pants, and even the human sovereign sword being reforged. What does all of this mean? The large eyeball muttered. How about Soren, you just go to Valino and surrender to Manwë. Danny said. What kind of rotten idea is that? Rather than being locked up in Manda's prison, I'd rather fight a good battle. Since you're so determined, why do you still have to complain to me? Danny sighed. In this time of danger, I hope you can play a bigger role. Give me advice and help me gather information. It'd be best if you can get the Supreme Demon Pants back. You also know that after turning into Mordor's Eye, I can't move freely like before. But there are some things that the foolish half-beastmen and cunning humans can't do. The demon eye Soren sighed. What is it that the 3,000 sunflower warriors can't do? How did you lose the Supreme Demon Pants? The sunflower warriors are strong and loyal to me, but once they see the Supreme Demon Pants, their rationality and loyalty will be overshadowed by greed. But you won't. I believe you won't be greedy for my pants, the demon eye said. Danny pursed her lips and rejected, even you can't sense the location of the pants, how can I find them? Help me lead the sunflower warriors. Once someone puts on my pants, I'll be able to determine their approximate location. Then, you can lead the sunflower warriors to search for them, the demon eye said. Danny thought for a moment and said, how about this? You can choose another sunflower commander, and I'll help you secretly keep an eye on him. That works too. Then, the demon eye said, I plan to drain the Earth's fire energy again, and then summon ice to turn Mordor into a kingdom of ice. What do you think? Soren King, you've already broken the dimensional wall and forced the author to change the ending. Danny praised. I just want to live. The king of Soren sighed. Danny's heart skipped a beat. She whispered, since we've guessed that the White Way will send the demonic pants into the volcano to be destroyed, why don't we make a fake Mount Doom and wait for them? I'm afraid I can't fool Eru. Of course it won't be fooled, but if it personally interferes with the fate of mortals, it will be slapping itself in the face. Danny sneered. After a long silence, King Soren said, I have a perfect plan in mind, but I can't tell you. Go to the lightless canyon in the south and bring Sagrado here. Sagrado. Danny's expression changed. What are you doing? Soren said in a sinister voice, the essence of the demonic arts is to steal the songs of laws from other demonic gods. I'm very interested in Sagrador's law of summoning. When things reach the point of no return. Humph. Danny was overjoyed. Finally, someone wanted to touch the hot potato. Don't play with fire. Eru can tolerate the drastic changes in fate, but it won't allow you to betray others. She was both shocked and scared, as if she couldn't accept the king of Soren's idea. I have a plan, Soren insisted. The year 3019 was a year of drastic changes in the world. The demonic pants guard team set off this year. There were still 9 members, corresponding to 9 ringwraiths. This year, Saruman attacked Rohan, the eastern barbarians attacked the Lonely Mountain in the north, and Soren's half-orcs and southern barbarians attacked Gondor. For a time, the whole world was engulfed in the flames of war. Thorin Oakenshield, who survived the War of the 5 Armies, died in the hands of the eastern barbarians. Not only did the king under the mountain die, but even the king of the valley, a small kingdom built by the dragon-slaying warrior Bard in The Hobbit, was sacrificed. The severity of the war in the north was no less than the war in the south between Helm's Deep and White City. The Eastern barbarians were the Eastern human kingdom under the Demon King. Since Morgoth bribed the Eastern barbarians to betray Nodo in the First Era, the Eastern barbarians had been one of the Demon King's bases. However, the Northern Human and Dwarf Alliance still blocked the Eastern barbarians' army, which greatly reduced the pressure on Gondor's main battlefield in the south. After knowing that his brother of hundreds of years died in battle, Tirion, the Axe King, was furious. He swore to the gods that he would break through Barad-dûr and blind the culprit. The Lonely Mountain was a little far from the underground kingdom of Moria. At that time, Rohan was besieged by Saruman's half-orcs. Even the crown prince of Rohan died in battle. According to the ancient treaty, King Tirion had to lead the dwarves to support. Because of his support, the originally tragic defense of Helm's Deep did not happen. Both sides set up battle formations on the grassland of Rohan. The old dwarf king held 2 axes, one ice and one fire. He was unparalleled among the half-orcs. Pippin and Merry were stunned. As expected of the legendary Axe King Tirion. He's too strong. The hobbit was shocked. The dwarf king's brother died in battle at the Lonely Mountain. He can only vent his hatred and pain on the half-orcs in front of him. Gandalf sighed. After defeating the half-orcs, besieging Isengard, and arresting the culprit, Saruman, King Tirion was ready to go back home. I'm going to the Lonely Mountain immediately to see if I can find a few Eastern barbarians. Even if they retreat, I'll cut off 10 barbarian kings' heads to pay tribute to Thorin, he said. But Gondor needs you, Gandalf said anxiously. We're too far away from Gondor. We've never signed a treaty. Old man, you're not that stupid, are you? If Gondor is finished, will the Demon King let go of the dwarves and the half-orcs? Or, if you retreat now, the Rohan cavalry will go to Gondor. If they lose the battle, you'll come back to Rohan for a second time. I understand what you're saying, but the people of Gondor. The old Tirion, whose beard had turned white, sighed. I went to Gondor in the early years to discuss an alliance with their prime minister, but those Dengdan people were too arrogant. They humiliated me with the most contemptuous tone and attitude. If I go there now, won't I be ashamed? Gandalf glanced at Aragorn, who had a serious expression on his face, and said in a low voice, "The ruler of Gondor is not the prime minister, but the king of the human race. Now that the king has appeared and fought side by side with you, when you go to Gondor, you'll only be greeted with flowers and applause." Aragorn immediately stepped forward, bowed, and said sincerely, "King Tirion, I'd like to apologize to you for what happened in White City, and I hereby swear that I'm willing to represent the humans and the dwarves in an eternal alliance." Tirion looked at the king in silence. The king did not avoid his gaze and looked back at him. After a long time, Tirion sighed. "I believe you, but I also believe that you won't rebel against Denethor. Forget it, when I cut off Sauron's head, I'll have all the face." Denethor was this generation's prime minister of Gondor. "Thank you." Aragorn looked at the half-orcs with more respect and gratitude. Even with the help of the dwarves, Aragorn still went to the path of kings. The battle to defend White City was fought beautifully. The allied forces of the half-orcs, the eastern barbarians, and the southern barbarians were completely destroyed, but the dwarven and human alliance did not suffer much. But this was not the end. In Mordor, Sauron's nest, there were more than 100,000 half-orcs and the even more terrifying 3,000 sunflower warriors. In order to make Mordor an empty city so that Frodo could enter the volcano, Aragorn immediately led the rest of the allied forces to attack Mordor after the siege of White City was lifted. Aragorn's tactical goal was achieved. The half-orcs and the fallen humans came out to fight Gondor's allied forces, and Mordor was empty. But at the crucial moment, Manwë's eagles came, dozens of them, spread their wings and covered the sky. Not only did they help the humans to stop the ringwraiths, but their leader, Solander, also brought a terrible news to Gandalf. Mount Doom was Soren's trap. The real volcano's fire had already been extinguished, and the glowing magma was Soren's magic creation. The magic pants were made from the fire of Mount Doom, which meant that the magic pants had the same level of energy as the fire. To destroy the magic pants, the power level of the magic pants had to be greater than or equal to the fire of the volcano. The problem was that Mount Doom was not an ordinary volcano. It was a super furnace summoned by Mirko in the first era, and the fire that it spewed out was the residue of the first fire. It was easy to understand. What use would ordinary magma be to boss me? So, unless Villa helped, the only way to destroy the magic pants was to rely on Mount Doom itself. But the volcano was extinguished, and the magma inside was Soren's magic camouflage, so its energy level must be much lower than the residue of the first fire. The Devil King is so cunning. Tyrion was shocked. The Pants Protection Team has become the Pants Delivery Team. The hobbits are not destroying the magic pants, they are delivering the magic pants to the Devil King. All heroes of the humans and dwarves, get on the eagles. We will go to Mount Doom and fight the Devil King to the death. Gandalf was furious. He jumped on the back of Manwë Eagle and asked Tyrion to get on as well. How do you call yourself a hero? Tyrion asked. Gandalf gritted his teeth and said, those who practice sorcery and are close to ultimate power, get on. I practice the art of the dragon and elephant. Kinpa of the Ring Protection Team shouted. I don't practice sorcery, but my archery skills are extraordinary. I can support from afar. The Elven Prince did not want to be left behind. I'll go too. Aragorn also jumped on the back of the eagle. You don't practice sorcery, so stay and command the army, Tyrion kindly suggested. With Eomer, the new king of Rohan, and Faramir, the new prime minister of Gondor, it's enough. Besides, I practiced the complete version of the Sunflower Manual, Aragorn said. What? The heroes who had jumped on the eagle almost fell. Is it worth it? The human kingdom and the elven princess are waiting for you. Tyrion said in disbelief. Don't get me wrong, I practiced the complete version of the Sunflower Manual. I don't need to cripple my body, Aragorn hurriedly explained. The complete version of the manual. What's the extra content? Tyrion asked curiously. Aragorn said strangely, there's an extra sentence: as long as you endure the pain, you can succeed without castration. Fuck, there were curses. Who gave you the complete version? Felix the dwarf asked. He was Tyrion's nephew. A mysterious bard said it was a reward for me, Aragorn said in a complicated tone. Ha ha ha, my magic pants are finally back. No, it shouldn't be like this. The Devil King's laughter and Frodo's desperate cry could be heard from afar. Soren, die. Zerondo the giant eagle first spat out a bolt of lightning at the giant eyeball. Then, Tyrion raised both of his hands. One of the two giant axes was covered in frost, while the other was covered in flames. They were like a pair of flaming wheels, spinning towards Soren. Devil King, die. The elven prince continuously shot arrows. Every arrow was enchanted with a special spell by Gandalf. Soren, your end is here. Gandalf raised his wand. The bright white light was like a divine sword, fiercely striking the Devil King's eye. Soren. One attack after another landed on the giant eyeball. No. Soren cried. This is not fair, Manwë cheated for you. I don't accept this. No one cared whether he accepted it or not. They just wanted to kill him. After everyone had destroyed the giant eyeball, Gandalf did not fail this time. He immediately caught Soren's soul and handed it to Zerondo the giant eagle. Not long after, news came from Valinor that Villa had personally judged Soren and sentenced him to eternal exile. His fate was the same as Mirko's. He was sealed in a large planet and thrown into outer space. His strength and soul slowly turned into the dark energy of the universe. After that, the elves collectively moved away from the Middle Lands, the dwarves hid in the giant caves, and the humans ushered in unprecedented glory. The third era ended, and the fourth era began. Chapter 1200. Fourth Era, Year 119, Spring. Gundor's capital, White City, the back garden of the palace. The pink dendrobium flowers shone brightly under the sun. The old man's gaze moved away from the colorful butterflies. "You're here." The two people suddenly appeared at the corner of the flower garden and in front of him. The palace guards did not react at all. However, he was no longer the same person as before. He was not shocked or confused. Instead, he revealed an undetectable joy. "I'm here to send you off. Just like how I sang the Song of Balin for your ancestor, Balin. Then, I'll ask him if there's anything he needs to correct," said the hooded woman with a smile. "Sigh, go ahead and sing." Old Wang found a stone step that could bathe in the sun. He sat there and squinted his eyes, waiting for the song that described his life to appear. "You forgot." "1 gold coin," said Danny. "Oh." Old Wang searched around his body and finally tossed over a silver pin from his chest. "Will this work?" "Very. After 2,000 years, I can sell it to your descendants." Old Wang's mouth twitched. He could not help but think of the teapot made by Lucian in the study room and the big black pearl that Balin found in the river. These were all treasures that he had exchanged with the mysterious person in the early years. The music was sometimes mellow, sometimes passionate, sometimes tragic, sometimes cheerful. In her song, Old Wang saw his old friends again. He wanted to immerse himself in the song forever, be with them forever, and stay in that era forever. The song ended. Old Wang was in a daze. There was a smile on his face, but there were tears on his face. Why did it stop? "Where's my ending?" he asked. "The crucial moment has arrived," said Danny faintly. "The human heart can't be controlled. I'm not sure what your ending will be either. I'm about to die. Probably next year. Why can't the conclusion be made?" Old Wang was puzzled. "In the past 120 years, you worked hard to rule the country. You were wise and brave, upright and forthright. You brought the human kingdom to an unprecedented height, a peaceful and prosperous era that will be remembered by future generations. But are you satisfied? Your friends died one by one. You also reached the end of your life. Your kingdom, your wife, everything that you have and are familiar with will disappear. Are you willing?" But Frodo and Bilbo went to the Holy Land of the West with their old friend Gandalf. Even Sam, Frodo's gardener, went to the land of everlasting bliss when he grew old. Soon, when you are gone, your last two friends, Legolas the elf and Gimli the dwarf, will go west. They will reunite in the land of eternity and rekindle the joy and friendship of the past, while you can only lie in the stone coffin, not knowing where to go. Your elven princess wife will also die of a broken heart not long after your death. Do you have any resentment, hatred, or unwillingness in your heart?" Old Wang smiled. "First of all, I'm not alone. Pippin and Merry's graves are right next to mine. You said it yourself, Arwen will come to accompany me soon. My descendants and the people will always remember me. My glory is fixed at the moment of my death, never withering away. What's there to be unhappy about with such a beautiful future? As for Gimli, Legolas, Gandalf, Frodo, and Sam, I'm very happy. Really, knowing that they can live happily forever and reunite again. This is the best news I've heard in the past few years." The hooded person stared at him for a long time. He was sincere and did not force himself to say it. She sighed. Darkness will only be defeated and will never disappear from the human world. After your death, the demon's shadow will reappear, and the suffering and calamity in the future will be even greater than when Soren was alive. After hearing this news, will you be depressed? Will you feel that the sacrifices you made were not worth it? The smile on old Wang's face disappeared, and his expression became serious. Demon Shadow. It's you. He, I'm going to be the Demon King. Who will write the biographies of heroes like you? Soren has disappeared, Mordor has been turned into farmland, and the half-beastmen are hiding in a corner of the world, waiting to die out. My people even treat the half-beastmen as a legend. Old Wang stood up and walked to the railing. He looked down at the shining white city in the distance and roared, "Where did the demon's shadow come from in such a prosperous time?" The demon's shadow is here, in the hearts of your people who treat the half-beastmen as a legend. The so-called prosperous dynasty was a joke in front of the Numenor kingdom of the past. Why don't I sing Numenor's Westport Nocturne for you to see how prosperous your ancestors' empire was? Danny chuckled. Old Wang was silent. He looked at the beautiful scenery below and sighed after a long time. I've completed the mission of my generation. Even if the kingdom will fall from prosperity and be invaded by the demon shadow, I believe that my descendants and the descendants of my people will be like their ancestors. They will stand up, straighten their backs, and face all evil and darkness with the firmest faith and the greatest courage. Oh, your answer is similar to your ancestor Balin's. Danny was a little disappointed. Is that so? Old Wang turned back, and a look of joy appeared on his face. You asked him the same question back then. Facts have proven that we didn't let him down. Humans didn't let him down. Alright, I've already written your ending. Let's meet again. Danny prepared to leave. How can there be a chance to meet again? Old Wang shook his head. There should be. When the universe ends, all of Aluvita's children will join the final movement. You will definitely have an important place in the movement. Old Wang was deep in thought. Seeing the hooded man's figure gradually fade away, he quivered and called out, "Wait, I have a few questions too. Can you tell me? Since you've provided me with so much material, go ahead. What exactly is the demon shadow? Where did it come from?" Old Wang asked with a serious expression. The desire in a person's heart is the greatest evil. Think about it carefully. How many humans and dwarves are there in Soren's demon army? There are even black Numenorians who are loyal to him. You think Soren is your enemy, but in reality, he's just a symbol, a symbol. Your enemy has always been yourselves. Uncontrollable desire will give birth to evil, but it's not evil itself, Old Wang said with a serious expression. You can say whatever you want, but evil and desire will never be separated. What exactly is it? Old Wang insisted. You're about to be buried, and you still want to leave something behind for your descendants. Danny laughed. I'm not buried yet. One day I wear the crown, another day I'm the human emperor. Old Wang said solemnly. Danny secretly laughed and said with a serious expression, immortality and extreme power are the greatest desires of humans, and the demon arts can help them realize their desires. The magic power in Middle-earth is fading, and the elves have fled overseas. Is the world weakening? No. On the contrary, the world only started to mature in the Fourth Era. The more mature the universe is, the easier it is to sense the power of darkness. Next, there will be a new era where the demon arts will flourish, and the demon shadow will be born. Danny was very proud. The dark demon arts era was her era, the era that she had created. And she was certain that unless the universe was destroyed, the demon arts era would never completely disappear. Year 119 of the Fourth Era, Summer. The human Emperor Aragon found the Axe King, Tyrion, who had not appeared for a long time. For the future of Middle-earth, they discussed for a long time and finally made a decision. At the beginning of the new year 120, the human Emperor issued a martial prohibition order: burn all secret demonic arts manuals and summon all those who practice demonic arts in front of him, making them swear in their lifetime they would never pass on their martial arts to others. In the autumn of the year 120, the human Emperor Aragon handed over his scepter and crown, and said goodbye to his wife and children. He entered the royal tomb, lay in his coffin, and breathed his last. In the same year, after attending the funeral of his old friend, the elf prince Legolas built a small boat and prepared to sail west. Seeing this, the dwarf Jinja also boarded the boat, and the two of them disappeared from Middle-earth forever. In the spring of the year 121, Queen Arwen passed away silently. Her children buried her with the late king. In the spring of the year 150, the martial prohibition order reached its peak. Many demon arts practitioners fled the human emperor's kingdom and entered the mountains and forests to protect themselves. In the spring of the year 170, Gondor established the first demon arts sect in Middle-earth, the Mountain Assembly, at the border of Middle-earth. Yes, it was a sect that practiced strength arts. It was rumored that the sect master could lift mountains and move seas. In the spring of the year 175, the human emperor Eldarion, Aragon's son, killed the sect master of the Mountain Assembly with a hammer. The first demon arts sect was destroyed, but there were already many sects in Middle-earth. In the spring of the year 200, on the day of the New Year celebration, the sect masters of 36 demon arts sects joined forces to assassinate the human emperor. The human emperor was chopped into minced meat. The crown prince was furious and swore to avenge his father. In the autumn of the same year, the crown prince was assassinated again. The queen and the crown prince's wife took care of the crown prince's orphan. The martial prohibition order had not been lifted, but it was only in name. In the spring of the year 201, the Axe King Tyrion came out of seclusion and learned about the tragedy that happened to the human emperor's family. Without saying a word, he left Moria alone with his two axes. In the spring of the year 202, the 36 strongest demon arts sects were massacred. The whole world was shocked. Among the humans, there was a saying that the dwarves are killing humans. We must take revenge and completely destroy the other races. In the spring of the year 210, Rohan was forced to dissolve the Holy Alliance with the Turin dwarves. In the spring of the year 220, with the help of many demon art sects, the human kingdoms in the northeast of Middle-earth joined forces to attack the underground kingdom of Moria. The human emperor Gondor led his troops to help, but they were ambushed halfway. The human emperor Dengdan, who did not practice any arts, died in battle at the age of 25. He did not leave behind any descendants. Since then, the throne of the human emperor was inherited by the descendants of Aragon's grandson. The war broke out. Both the humans and the dwarves suffered heavy losses. Blood flowed like a river in front of the gate of Moria. The Axe King was besieged by 80 martial arts sects. He killed 63 of them and was seriously injured. His nephew Philip was cut into 8 pieces in order to save him. Since then, the dwarves rarely appeared in the human world. In the spring of the year 221, Tyrion the Axe King recovered from his injuries. He sat alone in the dark for a long time. He put on his hood and went to Grey Harbor by the West Sea. The elf king Sidan received him. Sidan was the leader of the Teleri elves who had been searching for Elvi, who had been seduced by Melian. He had lived since the era of the twin holy trees. Sidan wanted to send the white-haired Axe King to Valinor for retirement. The Axe King, who cared about the world, smiled and refused. The Axe King said, "Aragon and I knew this day would come. We've prepared for it. He then told him about the plan he had discussed with Aragon and the purpose of his trip to seek help from Valinor. Sedan thought for a long time and said, "I don't think this plan is reliable." "You don't believe me?" The Axe King's face turned cold. "I believe you now, but if you—" Sedan could not continue when he saw the Axe King's determined and clear eyes. "Forget it. I'll help you send a message to Valinor," he said helplessly. Chapter 1201. It was not until 300 years into the Fourth Era that the old Axe King received a reply from Nodo and met his old friend Gandalf again, as well as more than 10 top craftsmen from Nodo's era. It took 200 years for the elves and dwarves to transform the Supreme Devil Pants into the crown of the Eternal Night King using many strange materials. Yes, Mount Doom was drained dry by Sauron's magic eye and even completely destroyed the ley lines. This alarmed the Earth God's arcane power and allowed Manwë to discover his scheme. In short, without Mount Doom, the Supreme Devil Pants could not be destroyed by mortals. Fortunately, the Devil King Sauron was cast into eternal darkness by Vila and could no longer enter the human world. As such, the Supreme Devil Pants became an ownerless magic weapon with only a huge amount of magic power and fatal temptation. Previously, the pants were sealed in the deepest part of the royal tomb by Aragon. Before he died, he took it out and entrusted it to King Tirion. If there were no accidents, the dwarves would find a crack in the ground and seal the magic weapon forever. However, with the magic shadow's arrival, the world was about to fall into an unpredictable dark abyss. Aragon and Tirion could only turn their eyes to it for help. Yes, the plan was decided by Aragon and Tirion together. However, this was the last choice. Unless it was absolutely necessary, it was best to throw the pants into the magma of the Earth's crust and seal it forever. Under Gandalf's worried gaze, the Axe King Tirion put on the crown of the Eternal Night King, which looked like a helmet. Frost spread down from the top of his head and formed a set of blue-black ice armor on his body. At the same time, a vast amount of black smoke formed a long dark cloak behind him. Tyrion's face, which had been polished by time and was as hard as black iron, showed signs of struggle and pain. He let out an inhuman roar from his mouth. In the roar, one could vaguely hear the cheerful laughter and vicious curses of Mirko, King Sauron, and many other demon kings. Gandalf immediately chanted a meditation spell and the hall lit up. After 20 years, Tyrion's face relaxed again. He opened his eyes and there seemed to be a galaxy in them. "Well?" asked Gandalf nervously. "As expected of the top craftsman of Valinor. The crown is just as we expected. It can form a magic canopy that covers the entire earth," Tirion said with a smile. Gandalf did not relax. "Can you bear it?" "The moment I activated the crown, there seemed to be thousands of people talking in my ears at the same time. Every sentence, every demonic thought, made me restless. I wanted to obey. But I didn't lose my mind. Slowly, I cleared all the devil thoughts and suppressed them in the bottom of my heart. Now, as you can see, my reason has suppressed the devil thoughts. You can suppress it now, but what about in the future? We'll talk about the future, in the future. This is our responsibility. My old friends are dying one by one. If I don't step up, who will?" Old Axe King sighed with a bleak expression. "I will stop practicing the sorcery arts and focus on keeping the dark energy out of the world." After pausing for a moment, he said in a low voice, "You are Maya. You are immortal and powerful. You can be my supervisor. If something happens to me in the future, then..." "Sigh, I can't predict the future. You can decide for yourself when the time comes. No matter what, you must stop me from falling into the dark abyss." Gandalf nodded with a heavy heart. In the year 550 of the Fourth Era, the dwarven kingdom of Moria was completely closed to the outside world. King Tyrion left his home and entered the ice world in the northernmost part of the continent, sealing himself in ice on a black stone throne forever. It was also in this year that the sorcery arts realized that the dark energy from the void seemed to have thinned out. At first, they thought it was an illusion, or a new change brought about by the new era. Just like in this era, the elves gradually disappeared from Middle-earth. 200 years later, the dark energy thinned to a limit. There was even the first case of the sorcery arts declining instead of improving. Why is this happening? It's only been 600 years since the Fourth Era. The golden age of the sorcery arts hasn't even begun, but the magic power has declined to the point where it's hard to cultivate. The sorcery arts community was in an uproar. But they were powerless. The speed of sorcery arts cultivation became slower and slower. For a long time, no Grand Master with ultimate power appeared. In the year 800 of the Fourth Era, another shocking event occurred. A sorcery arts master with ultimate power used up his lifespan and died at the age of 666. Not to mention, compared to mortals, with Númenórean's long lifespan, 666 was already an exaggeration. But the remaining sorcery arts were terrified and angry. Because after grasping ultimate power, they should have enjoyed eternal lifespan. I can't accept this. I cultivated bitterly for 400 years and finally grasped the power of the gods. I should have enjoyed eternal wealth and glory. Why is my lifespan only a few hundred years? An old sorcery arts master shouted in grief and anger. In the next 300 years, sorcery arts master after sorcery arts master used up their lifespan and died. Until a sorcery arts master appeared in the Far East who was diligent and loved his people. He was pleasantly surprised to find that whenever his subjects worshipped and offered sacrifices to him, a mysterious power would descend upon him. This power was no weaker than darkness origin power and could aid sorcery arts cultivation. More importantly, it could make him immortal. This is the power of faith. Damn it, why didn't I think of this before? Soon, a black Númenórean sorcery art master researched the information of the previous devil lords Sorin and Mirko and discovered the true nature of this mysterious power. The black Númenóreans were not the dark-skinned Dendane Númenóreans. Instead, they were a large group of fallen Númenóreans who had been lured in by Sorin when he was the Prime Minister of Númenórean. They were spread across the colonies of Middle-earth and were similar to the Volantis of the Song of Ice and Fire. They had luckily escaped the Great Calamity and had been reproducing until today. These people were the main force of the cultivation world. They had founded many hidden cultivation sects with families as their unit. With the Dendane Númenóreans' extraordinary talents, they had given birth to many Grand Masters with ultimate power. The Dendane Númenóreans had experienced the blood sacrifice of Mirko and had seen Sorin extract the evil power of faith from humans to form his body. They were not ignorant of the power of faith. In the year 1200 of the Fourth Era, in the northwest of Middle-earth, a Grand Master named Odin Asa called himself the God King. The people under his rule could only worship him and were not allowed to have other faiths. The prelude to the Age of Gods began. Zeus, Gaia, Surit, Amaterasu. A bunch of fake gods appeared one after another. How did the world become like this? Sorin was a little confused. Danny came to outer space to visit again. Sigh, let's not talk about you. I met Womu a few years ago. He also felt despair about the current state of Middle-earth. Ha ha ha, this is the world I want. Everyone is like a demon, there is no etiquette, and only the strong are respected. Mirko was very excited. Stranger, are you the mastermind behind all of this? Sorin asked. No, I've been very low-key for the past 1,000 years. I don't even dare to walk around. I'm afraid that I'll be seen as the successor of the Devil King, Danny quickly said. Boss Me was dissatisfied. Soren and I have been exiled forever. If you don't take up the responsibility now, when are you going to do it? It's because both of you didn't have a good ending that I don't want to repeat the same mistake, Danny said confidently. This is your fate. You can't escape it, Mirko sneered. He was wrong. Danny herself was frightened for a long time, but she lived through the next 3 eras peacefully. The fourth era lasted for 5,000 years. In the first half of this era, the fake gods were still able to flourish. However, in the second half, the source of faith was occupied by the big god clans. Their potential was exhausted, and they were inevitably swept away. Well, the so-called god clans were actually sorcery cultivation sects and families. At the end of the fourth era, the war of faith led to the terrifying twilight of the gods. Almost all the masters of the ultimate power died in battle, and the era of the fake gods ended. In fact, those who could master the power of law were not fools. Many fake gods had even predicted the twilight of the gods at the end of the era more than 1,000 years in advance. They also knew the way to break the dark net seal on the dark power outside of Earth. Odin, Gaia, Zeus, and other main gods had all looked for Dark Master Tyrion. Danny was also shocked when she heard what the fake gods called Tyrion. However, they had never called him by the wrong nickname. The Axe King from back then was now fully qualified to be called Dark Master. Because he was wearing the Eternal Night King title, not only did he stop the dark power that tried to enter Earth, he also absorbed the dark power that was produced on Earth. As long as there was evil, the dark power could be produced. At most, Mirko's evil was purer, and its quality and quantity were higher. Humans were fewer in number, but their nature was not necessarily inferior. According to Villa, the reason why Earth could not get rid of evil was because of the seed of evil that Mirko had left behind. I want you to die. In the age of chaos, the world will only be purified after all of you are dead. Faced with the fake god's request to open the dark net, Tyrion said viciously. You are the Dark Master. You have absorbed the most dark power and mastered the most ultimate power. You have no right to say such things. Odin was furious. I turned into a demon to wipe out all the demons in the world. Tyrion's white hair fluttered in the wind as he raised his head and laughed. Don't think that I can't recognize you just because you put on the Demon Supreme pants. Take off your pants and the dark net seal will break on its own, Gaia threatened. She was a black Numenorian who had followed Soren before, so she knew the secret of the pants. It's not the pants, it's the crown. Tyrion said angrily. Putting the pants on his head, how vulgar and disgusting was that? It doesn't matter if you call it a towel to wipe your mouth. In any case, we want the pants. With that, the group of fake gods charged forward. Unfortunately, they only mastered one ultimate power, while Tyrion, who was wearing the pants, had comprehended 12 laws. The most important thing was still internal energy. Because the dark net separated Earth from the universe, the fake gods were unable to absorb the purest dark origin power, the power of the demon god, which corresponded to the ultimate power. On the other hand, Tyrion, who relied on the dark net, could absorb dark origin power 1,000,000 times more efficiently. There was a huge difference in quality and quantity between the two sides. It was also because of this battle that Tyrion obtained the title of Dark Master. Since the attack failed, the fake gods were left with only one option: defeat the other fake gods and take over the source of faith in Midland. Use the power of faith of all humans to fight against the Dark Master wearing the pants. In theory, this was also a feasible option. As long as it was a war, there would always be a final victor. The final victor of the war of faith would become the only god of all humans in Midland. Yahweh was a combination of 3 fake gods, who mastered 3 ultimate powers and won the final victory. Ha ha ha, I am the only god, Dark Master. Just you wait, Wait for me. He was standing among the pile of fake gods' corpses, his face covered in blood, and laughing loudly. The Dark Master suddenly appeared and chopped him in half with an axe. Axe looked at the last god, who had died with his eyes wide open, and sneered. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I'll give you time to master the power of faith in the entire continent? While you were fighting, I was waiting at the side, waiting for the chance to kill all of you. This is the true Ragnarok. The last god took his last breath unwillingly. The fourth era ended, and Tyrion became the ultimate demon king. Chapter 1202. The fifth era was the Common Era. This was an era where magic was at its weakest. The elves had become a legend, the dwarves seemed to have dug through the earth to enter another plane, and the hobbits and the few remaining orcs had merged with the humans. They first became a human race, and when their racial characteristics gradually disappeared, they were finally reduced to ordinary citizens of a country. In 1975, humans began to attempt to land on the moon. Rockets rose to the sky, and technology conquered the world. However, Vera intervened and interfered with them. A huge explosion at NASA stopped the first moon landing operation. At the same time, archaeologists at Oxford University began to research the secrets of Atlantis. The history of the Númenóreans was gradually revealed, and Williner and Villa were about to be exposed to the eyes of ordinary historians. Manwë took action, sending the great eagle Xerando disguised as a natural storm to attack Oxford University. Although the original manuscripts were lost, the professors at Oxford University managed to find records of ancient history elsewhere. Some secrets were known to ordinary people, but only the upper echelons of the human race knew. Ordinary people still believed that they had evolved from the monkey. In 3300 AD, humans finally began to colonize the stars, and Earth was no longer their only home. Gandalf, you have neglected your duties. The world has developed so quickly that people have left Earth. What's the use of my black net? Tyrion the Dark Lord complained to his old friend. Sigh, we have tried our best to stop it. Many spaceship malfunctions, and many adjustments to the country's aviation budget were all because of me. However, the fate of humans is decided by themselves, and Wylenor's villa can't interfere. We have already reached our limit, Gandalf said helplessly. What do we do now? Tyrion asked. Perhaps you can leave Earth and cover the entire solar system with the black net, Gandalf said hesitantly. Tyrion looked at him deeply and said, to do that, I have to continue to increase my cultivation and absorb darkness origin power. Perhaps, I won't be able to last until the next era. Humans are constantly creating darkness energy, and the evil of the two world wars is even greater than the evil of the previous demon kings combined. In order to stop the darkness from rising again, I have absorbed too much darkness energy from humans. You're also a human. You decide what to do. Given the current situation, even Valinor can't do anything about it, Gandalf said bitterly. The fifth era ended in the year 3957. The new humans that grew up in outer space started an interstellar war with the humans on Earth to seize control of the solar system. The death toll exceeded 30 billion. The darkness origin power in the universe became denser and denser. Amazing. Humans nowadays are amazing. The number of people I've killed in my entire life is less than the number of people they've killed in a single battle. My vicious schemes and evil schemes were magnified 10 times, 100 times. Compared to them, we are nothing. Mirko was shocked and disappointed. Maybe the universe doesn't need the Dark Demon King anymore, because every human has the seed to become a Demon King, Soren said dejectedly. After 2 epochs, Dany felt a lot more relaxed. It was as if the calamity that was supposed to befall her had passed before it happened. She wasn't stupid. She guessed that this result might have something to do with Tyrion. However, she still did not look for him. Instead, she hid on the side as a passerby and quietly observed the development of the situation. 20,000 years after humans entered the interstellar era, the solar system accumulated too much darkness origin power. Tyrion, who had been trying his best to maintain the balance of the solar system origin power, finally couldn't hold on anymore and became a demon. However, his old friend Gandalf kept his promise. The moment before he became a demon, Gandalf helped him completely free himself. He ended up like Mirko and Soren, becoming a part of the universe's darkness dimension. So I'm the Dark Demon King. I always thought that I was the savior. Tyrion said bitterly. I feel like you've changed into a different person. When Tyrion's destiny completely ended, Dany went to visit him in the universe prison. According to her impression of Tyrion, he should have quickly become a demon when he first came into contact with the dark arts in the Third Era. He would have probably enjoyed it. The current Tyrion was too righteous and too nice. It wasn't that Tyrion's actions in this life didn't match his personality. It was more like the evil and flaws in his human nature had been shaved away, leaving him with only righteousness. It was similar to how he dealt with Manwë and Mirko. I also feel that you're not like yourself. You treat life as a toy and have no humanity. This angel. Tyrion actually started to blame Dany. The two of them didn't get along. After a short conversation, Dany left with a wooden face. It wasn't until 30,000 years later, in the year 60323, that humans truly walked out of the solar system and started to colonize other star systems. Humans ushered in an unprecedented development. Not only did they advance in technology, but they also used scientific methods to revive the dark arts cultivation era of personal evolution. After tens of thousands of years, humans who had climbed to the peak of technology and reached a bottleneck started the Search for the Old Paradise project. The peak of technology met the gods. They wanted to find Valinor and enter the utopia where Villa lived. We humans want to truly rule the world, and not be like lab rats, helping them to verify their ideas under the whispers of the higher civilizations. Villa and Aluvita, listen up, we want to control our own destiny. We want true freedom, the great freedom that can transcend this universe. Arda isn't our limit, nor is the Milky Way. The universe that you call Yaya still isn't our limit. We know that there's a wider world beyond the universe. Now, we want to fight for the right to be free. The leader of the Human Alliance spoke with the loudest voice in the universe. He was a peerless powerhouse who had mastered 300 ultimate powers. He had once traveled to the edge of the universe alone. He understood the ultimate secret of the universe was like a brain. Every star system and galaxy was a cell in the brain. The expanding universe was like the expansion of thought. The limit of thought was the boundary of the universe. The power that allowed the limit of thought to expand was the dark force that filled the universe and caused the boundary to expand outwards. In other words, the dark energy evolved from the dark demon god and the human's evil energy, and the positive energy evolved from Villa and the human's light energy, were the source of the universe's expansion. The expansion of the universe was the same as the growth of the consciousness. The starship under the leader of the Human Alliance could easily destroy the solar system and even severely damage the Milky Way. His soldiers could fill the sky. Similarly, he was also the Dark Demon Lord in Villa and Aluvita's plan. Now, the Dark Demon Lord led hundreds and thousands of Starry Sky Emperors who had mastered ultimate powers and hundreds of thousands of high-grade space battleships back to the place where they were born and grew up. They surrounded the Earth that was once called Arda. As long as Villa dared to say no, thousands of cannons would be fired and turn the God's kingdom into dust along with Earth. They had already found countless planets similar to Earth in the universe. Moreover, they already understood the past history and knew that Earth was more like Villa's cage. It did not allow them to breathe the free air outside the dark force. The humans were nervous and expectant. They did not know what Villa was capable of and were nervous. They were looking forward to the heroic scene of the starship bombarding Villa, but they were also looking forward to it. Just as the leader's countdown reached 0, the Eye of Angorian seemed to have jumped through time and space and suddenly appeared above the solar system. The brilliant bloodlight ignored the starship's neutron armor and landed on the faces of the human interstellar troopers who were full of excitement. Their expressions froze and they slowly raised their heads, confused and fearful. Where did the Eye of Angorian come from? It seems to have jumped through time and space. No wonder we did not find any traces of it and the Great Hope Star for tens of thousands of years. They are Villa's weapons, a spaceship that can jump through space. That was not wrong. The Great Hope Star, Erendel, was indeed a spaceship. Erendel wore the Silmarillion on her head and piloted the wooden shell spaceship that found Velino, was canonized by Manwë, and was blessed by Villa. Not only was the Lucky Star a spaceship, the Sun and Moon before humans entered space were all spaceships piloted by Maya. Later, when humans began to enter the era of interstellar colonization, Valda created 2 ordinary stars to replace the Sun and Moon. The Sun and Moon spaceships from before still existed. They only flew around the outer ring of the Amen continent. However, the Eye of Angorian was not a spaceship. It was a ball of dark fate that represented curses, tragedy, and blood. You will only be able to see and feel your destiny when it comes to you. At other times, it was unpredictable and unpredictable. Planet Destroyer, Level 1 Energy Cannon, 3 rounds of fire. The commander pointed at the blood-red star above his head. His face was twisted as he roared at the top of his lungs. He was afraid. Even in the interstellar era, the legend of the Eye of Angorian did not disappear. On the contrary, news of the appearance of the Blood Star came from various galaxies from time to time. That's right, it was not limited to the solar system where Earth was located. Every time it appeared, there would be a great tragedy in the galaxy where it was located. Without exception. Therefore, may the Eye of Angorian never meet you again, had always been the most common verbal blessing between the crew and the captain when the spaceship left the spaceport. With the commander's order, thousands of colorful energy beams streaked across the Eye of Angorian. It was like a spear piercing through smoke. Without waiting for the interstellar fleet to adjust their attack mode, an inconspicuous black dot suddenly appeared in the sky above Earth. The next moment, all the light rays distorted toward the black dot. All the spaceships, no matter what material they were made of, were instantly crushed. It was like a giant crushing a scallion pancake. It's a black hole. The leader of the Federation, who had mastered 300 laws, lasted the longest. He had the chance to panic and spit out half a sentence. The others, along with the spaceship, were instantly crushed into atoms by the strong gravitational difference. Even the atoms were crushed. The era of the unified Federation, which had developed to the peak of technology, ended. Since then, humans had never been able to find Earth in the Milky Way. No one knew how many tens of thousands or hundreds of millions of years had passed. At the edge of the Milky Way, in a double-star solar system. On a giant planet called Tatooine. On a street full of yellow sand, a 7-year-old blonde boy raised his head and asked curiously, "What is a bard?" An ancient profession that specializes in telling stories to the audience with songs and poems. The hooded woman smiled. "If you want to listen to stories, I have a holographic projection wristwatch. It's more immersive." The boy raised his right hand with little interest. "Sigh, the electronic player can't give a story a soul." The hooded man shook his head. The boy scratched the top of his head, his cute little face scrunching up. "Listening to stories is boring. I like racing cars." Oh, you're a racer at such a young age. The woman couldn't help but pinch the boy's face. It was chubby and very bouncy. I like the feeling of flying at high speeds. The boy took a step back, avoiding her cold fingers. So, you want to be a racer in the future? I don't know. The boy was conflicted. My mother and I are slaves. I want to be free. I want my mother to live a good life. I want to win a racing car competition. I also want to be a Jedi Knight. There are so many things I want to do, but I'm just a slave now. All the money I earn belongs to my master. You inherited the ancient human emperor's bloodline. You're a good seedling to cultivate the Force. However, you're not suitable to be a Jedi Knight, the hooded man said. Are you sure I can cultivate the Force? If I can cultivate the Force, why can't I be a Jedi Knight? Also, what's a human emperor? The boy was surprised and confused. The hooded man flipped his right hand, and an exquisite silver brooch appeared in his palm. This is your ancestor Aragon's singing fee. I'm giving it to you now. In the future, after a pause, he said, you have the strength to become a hero, but you don't have the determination to match it. What is determination? The boy held the silver brooch, his little face full of confusion. Why don't I let this second elf singer sing a few songs about ancient heroes for you to let you feel true courage and fearlessness? The hooded man pointed at the handsome man with white hair and pointed ears. Is he an elf? I've never seen this race before, the boy said curiously. The strongest Jedi Knight in the Milky Way, Master Yoda. Do you know him? He is a mixed descendant of a hobbit and a dark elf. Perhaps he has some half-orc blood as well. It's been a long time. The hooded man thought for a while. About 3 billion years ago, a new race was formed. Do I need money to listen to the songs? I don't have money, the boy said hesitantly. It's okay. When I write your Song of Anakin in the future, I won't pay any copyright fees, she said with a smile. Chapter 1203. My lady, have you found out? What is the background of the new Demon King? Lalo asked in a fawning manner. Cersei glanced at him and said calmly, instead of worrying about others, why don't you focus on improving yourself? My lady, I can't not pay attention. To tell you the truth, my position as the great Demon King has been shaken. Do you know what this means? Lalo asked anxiously. Thousands of years had passed, and Cersei was no longer a novice. Her expression changed slightly when she heard this. Are you saying that Mirko might replace you? The great Demon King of Hell quickly asked. His name is Mirko. What's his background? That guy is arrogant and cold. My seduction spells did not work at all. I could not get any secrets out of him. Cersei sighed. You seduced him. Lalo was furious. She was his wife. What else? If I asked him directly, would he tell me his secrets without paying any price? Cersei said angrily. Lalo was frustrated, but he could not refute. Is he not a man? Even you could not seduce him. He said awkwardly. He was not happy that his wife could not seduce Mirko. That guy only wants to recruit soldiers and buy horses. He wants to gain territory in the 7th layer of hell and develop his own power. He doesn't care about love at all. When he sees me flirting, the first thing he thinks of is not lust. Instead, he scratches his chin and ponders. What can I do under him? Cersei said angrily. Focus on his career. That's a huge problem. Lalo shouted. After that, Lalo was relieved. Mirko did not put him in his place and had offended Cersei. He did not have to worry about the adulterous couple plotting against him. Circe looked at him deeply and said, "If I'm not wrong, the 7 gods are very dissatisfied with your slacking off." Mirko, Soren, and the other evil gods were sent to hell by the 7 gods to provoke you. The silver carp effect, do you understand? Of course I understand, but I did not slack off. Haven't you seen my efforts all these years? Lolo said, feeling wronged. What's the use of just working hard? It depends on the results. You still haven't sung a complete song of laws. In this new world that is developing faster and faster, what makes you think you can be the great demon king? It's only been 8,000 years, but my Song of Shadows has already reached 25. 1,478,319% progress. The Song of Poison Fire has also begun. In the entire infernal realm, aside from you, who else can cultivate faster than me? Lolo said arrogantly. I'm afraid the Black Goddess won't think so. Circe sighed softly. You know how fast our world has developed in the past few thousand years. There are even 5 true gods among the humans who can sing the complete Song of Laws. Including the non-humans, there were more than 10 true gods in the astral plane. But what about the hell that corresponded to the astral plane? There wasn't even a single true god. If I were the Black Madonna, I would also feel dissatisfied. Actually, you and I should be glad that there isn't a single true god in infernal realm. Otherwise, you would definitely lose your position as the great demon king. Lolo pulled his hair with a pained expression. This doesn't make sense. Our world is still at the bottom level of the universe. In theory, there shouldn't be any true gods. In theory, our world should have been destroyed by the white frost, but how prosperous is the world now? You've lived for tens of millions of years. Tell me, compared to the upper level of the universe tens of millions of years ago, has the world become stronger or weaker? Circe said impatiently. Lolo was stunned. He suddenly stepped forward, grabbed her hand, and begged, "We can't just sit here and wait for death. I don't have the confidence to fight Mirko head-on. You know how black-hearted the Black Goddess is." Visitors from another world who can be accepted by the world of the 7 gods are all gifted and beneficial to the world. The 5 human true gods in the astral plane, other than the bald donkey Chizang, the other 4 are all immigrants. Even if Jon Targaryen and Jaime Lannister were extremely gifted, they wouldn't be able to perfect the Song of Laws in 10,000 years. But those guys are all children of destiny. They have the support of the world's will. The true gods of other species are even more terrifying. There isn't a single native beast god. They all come from another world. I'm afraid that Mirko and Soren are similar to thunder god Dennis. According to the dwarf's plan before he left, Saladin and the Silver Targaryen woman gave birth to a son who is half of the bloodline of another world. They have powerful gifts and extraordinary bloodlines. What plan do you have to deal with this? Circe was worried. For the past few thousand years, her original body had been tortured in a mountain of knives and sea of fire. The pain didn't lessen at all. However, her spiritual projection was the boss in infernal realm, ordering people around and showing off. If Mirko replaced Lolo as the new great demon king, would the demons in infernal realm still respect her, demon queen Circe? If Mirko was lustful, then so be it. After a few thousand years, she was already sick of Lolo. She wouldn't mind having the Black Goddess as a witness to dissolve the holy marriage and go to King Mirko. But that guy couldn't get hard. How are we better than the immigrants? Lolo asked softly. Circe frowned. She bit her red lips and her pink tail swayed behind her. After a long while, she said helplessly, "It seems that the immigrants are better than us in every aspect. Back then, Targaryen ruled the world. Now, 1/3 of the kingdoms have changed owners. Even Targaryen can't withstand the attacks of the immigrants. We are even weaker. But we have connections. You're alone. What connections do you have? Cersei rolled her eyes at him. Your family is also my family. You can ask my brother-in-law for help, LoveLore said matter-of-factly. Cersei looked incredulous. You want me to ask Jaime and ask Jaime to help you? If it was in the early years, he would definitely cut you in half. But now... She sighed. I don't know what kind of charm that ugly woman Brittany has. They are still together. No matter what, he won't help you. I'm his brother-in-law after all. And Tyrion. Seeing the displeasure on her face, LoveLore stomped his foot and said, We're in a pinch, and you're still thinking about the bad things in the early years. I've almost forgotten what Tyrion looks like, Cersei said with a bitter smile. In front of the gate of the first layer of hell. The human torches of the betrayers were lined up on both sides. There were hundreds and thousands of them. There was no end in sight. They were all undead who had violated the traditional ethics of sacred vows, holy marriages, and the rights of guests. After death, they went to hell and were made into human torches. Every undead who received the Father's judgment would walk through a long passage of human torches. They would also be so frightened that their legs would tremble and they would lose control of themselves. At this moment, under the orange light of the torches, a silver-haired old man who was bound by chains was tugging at the sleeves of a girl in a black dress and pleading. I'm doing this for Targaryen. Great-grandmother, I even attended your 3000th birthday banquet. You must help me, the old man begged. I'm just a ghost servant who suppresses evil spirits. I'm not a judge. I have no say in front of the Father. I can't help you. The pale girl with a huge bloody scythe on her back said awkwardly. After the old man was pulled into the gate of the tribunal, Cersei approached the girl and said with a fawning expression, Lyanna, is your mother Arya here? There's a demigod necromancer in the Far East who uses the souls of living people to refine a ghost flag. My mother just rushed over, the girl said calmly. Cersei nodded and asked, that old man just now seemed to be Terp Targaryen of the Revival Society. He offered you a blood sacrifice. The girl's eyes were cold. Cersei did not comment. She chuckled and said, I think his idea is good. Resist immigration and make Targaryen great again. It's not just Targaryen. Many of the old families in the great world of 7 gods have deep feelings about this. Tell that to the Holy Mother. The girl's expression was still cold. I'm also here for immigration. However, it's not immigration from the world of the living. It's the new group of demon kings from another world in the 7 levels of hell, Cersei said seriously. My mother and I are both grim reapers with scythes. We don't care about such things. Cersei thought for a moment and said, Can you go to the Northern Ice Kingdom and call your father over? My father is in seclusion. He won't come out until he breaks through to true God. No one will see him for the next 2000 years. Even he feels the pressure. Cersei was surprised. Tyrion is back. Not only did he break through to true God, he also comprehended the Song of the 5 Laws, Lyanna said with a complicated expression. What? Cersei was so shocked that her mouth was crooked. That guy's talent is mediocre. Even his ascension to demigod relied on connections. How can he recite the Song of the 5 Laws in such a short time? Granduncle went to the upper universe. It's easier to comprehend the laws there. It seems that Mirko and the other demon kings from another world were also brought back by him, the girl said. Cersei's expression changed several times. She asked bitterly, Where is he now? Granduncle came back 50 years ago. He should be at Sky Dragon Temple now. Cersei was silent. I'm innocent. I sacrificed the demon kings. I was full of nonsense. I didn't keep my oath. I instigated a riot. I admit it all. But it's all to make Targaryen great again. The old man squatted on the ground and was dragged forward by two hellspawns. He kept crying out for his innocence. Cersei and Lyanna watched from the side as the hellspawn dragged him to the end of the fleshly torch and sealed him inside the stone wall. The hellspawn then used an iron clamp to pull his tongue out and tied it into a knot to prevent it from retracting. After that, the hellspawn nailed a red-hot iron drill into his head. Flames spurted out from the hole and another fleshly torch was formed. So tragic, so cruel. Even Targaryen didn't give him any preferential treatment, Cersei muttered. The world belongs to the people of the world, not Targaryen, Lyanna Targaryen sighed. Cersei's eyes flickered. She said, "Can you help me send a message and ask Tyrion to come over? I can tell the Northern Ice Lord's residence. But I can't guarantee whether he will come or not." Tyrion was very surprised that Horse would look for him. This meant that she was admitting defeat in a disguised form. So, he immediately rushed over when he received the message. Cersei did not change much. She was still a slutty succubus, but she did not flirt with him. "You've changed a lot." Instead, it was Tyrion's appearance and temperament that surprised Cersei greatly. "I've witnessed the rise and fall of a universe. For billions of years, I've lost the concept of time," Tyrion sighed. Chapter 1204. After that, Tyrion recounted his experience. "Iru was so strong, how did you escape?" Cersei asked in disbelief. Iru was strong, but she was not weak either. She even deliberately, Tyrion thought for a moment before saying, "When the universe dies naturally, the last theme of the great movement begins." All the living beings that existed in the first subspace were part of the chorus. When they finished singing their part of the music, they turned into a message and merged into the black hole at the center of the universe. The entire universe was collapsing towards one point. The message was recorded in the black hole, and the consciousness became a brand new thought of Iru. What a great move by Iru! At this point, the dwarf could not help but exclaim, "All living beings were born from Iru, and will return to Iru in the end." In the end, the most ordinary mortal was no different from Manuel, the ruler of the gods of Welinor. The so-called heroes and demons, whether they lived a glorious life or were cursed by thousands of generations, they were all meaningless. They were all the same, they only provided Iru with a different way of thinking. Just like a candy and a pepper, the candy and the pepper thought they were completely different from each other, but in the eyes of the customer, they only provided him with a different taste for a split second. There was no difference between a hero and a demon king to Yi Rong. Compared to the seven gods' great world in the first subspace, we should be thankful. Compared to Yi Ru, my younger sister is much more humane. Oh, before she left, she did not forget to help Mirko, Soren, and the other old friends out of their misery. Although there was some suspicion of revenge, at least she gave them an independent personality and an unpredictable future. Cersei was in a daze for a moment before asking softly, "She brought so many people with her, but Iru did not stop her." I had already turned into a message and was recorded by the black hole. I do not know the exact process, but I vaguely felt. Tyrion rubbed his nose, looking a little embarrassed. There seemed to be dozens of halos around her, and 4 swords that roared like Megalosaurus. They should be the 4 dragons other than Blackie. She was like a beam of destructive light that suddenly jumped into the choir of the Grand Symphony of Armageddon. The endless suction took away a large piece of it. It was like using a large spoon to dig out a large piece of fruit cream cake. I only heard Iru's angry roar. Later, she told me that after she successfully stole the chicken, she couldn't resist the urge to fight with Eru. The battle between the two of them shattered 7 or 8 worlds nearby. It even alarmed the nearby realms, and a few more creation gods joined the chaotic battle. It's very tragic. You're back. Does that mean she's won? Defeated a group of gods of creation? Circe asked in surprise. Tyrion sighed. In terms of overall strength and understanding of the first flame, she's definitely not as good as I am, but in terms of understanding of black holes and destruction, she's most likely better than I am. Most importantly, she was very good at running. She had developed the ancient blood of the elves to its limits. Traveling through time and space was like an instinct to her. It's just like how those creation gods chased her through tens of thousands of worlds and lost her. You're so lucky to have such a powerful backer. You've comprehended 5 laws in one go, Circe said enviously. You have no idea what I've sacrificed. Tyrion was a little agitated. Circe shook her head. No matter the price, there are countless people willing to take your place. The path of cultivation is so difficult. Most of the time, you've paid an unimaginable price for nothing. Tyrion was stunned. He sighed. That makes sense. You're looking for me this time because of Mirko. Lalo said that Mirko might take his position as Demon King, Circe said. That's not a groundless worry. She's benefited greatly from Eru. She's deciphered most of the secrets of the first flame of creation. Now, she's truly mastered the first flame, and it might be a level 2 first flame. There are levels to the first flame. Circe was confused. A god of creation might sound powerful and rare, but there are countless gods of creation in the universe. There are strong and weak creation gods, so there are naturally levels to the first flame. How powerful is a level 2 first flame? Circe murmured. It can create 1,007 gods' worlds in one go. Circe was dumbfounded. Tyrion looked at her deeply. So, do you understand why she sent Mirko and Soren to hell? Light and darkness, justice and evil, the balance must be maintained for the world to develop steadily. Outside the universe, I'm not sure if she's an angel or a demon, but in the 7 gods world, she's the Holy Mother. The Holy Mother represents justice and light, and you demon kings added together can't even compare to a single strand of her hair. How can the balance be maintained? Since you can't do it, let the demon king who can do it take over. Mirko and Soren are Eru's dark wills. To put it bluntly, they're just a part of Eru. Their quality is even higher than Eru's own. Eru is at least a level 3 first flame. Its level is high, but its combat power is somewhat lacking. It's a research-type creation god, and my sister, she's a war god, the dwarf said in a low voice. Who's calling me? Ghost messenger Graz Dan heard someone calling a war god from afar and looked over. Brother Tyrion, you're looking for me. Tyrion was stunned for a moment before he recognized his old friend, war god Graz Dan. It's not you. He waved his hand awkwardly. War god left angrily. The dwarf hurriedly called out, Brother war god, when you're free, come to Sky Dragon Temple and have some tea with me. War god's eyebrows rose as he agreed. After Graz Dan left, Circe was still in a daze. She mumbled, Mirko is Eru's dark wills, then that's not right. Without Mirko and Soren, wouldn't the balance between good and evil be broken? She was confused. That's why she took Mirko away to take revenge on Eru. As long as she controls Mirko and Soren, she'll be able to reverse Eru's path of first flame. What about me and Lalo? Circe asked anxiously. Let's compete fairly. We can't compete. Lalo is too useless, Circe complained. Then you can be the second and give the 7th floor to Mirko and Soren. You guys can go to the 6th floor. Your 2 fathers are on the 7th floor. Without me looking after them, who knows what Mirko and the other demons will do to them. They. Tyrion hesitated. How are they? What else? They're tortured every day. They scream and curse at each other every day. When they think of you, they'll curse you loudly. Now that they know you've mastered 5 laws, they'll probably curse you even more for being unfilial. You're enjoying life while your father suffers in hell. Cersei was gloating. She wagged her tail, and the heart-shaped meatball at the end of her tail was glowing pink. Tyrion glared at her and said, "He's your father too. I've tried my best to take care of him. My father didn't scold me. Sometimes, he even gave me advice and taught me how to rule over the other demon kings. During festivals, I'll give him a portion of my believers. But the Mad King is greedy. He. He'll curse you more and more. No one will burn money for him during festivals. Sigh, I'll go check on them." The dwarf was about to leave. "Wait, I'm not done yet." Cersei stopped him. "I can't help you. Balancing the power of heaven and hell is the law of the world. Even the 7 gods can't change it. If you don't suppress Mirko directly, can you introduce me to some benefits so that I can level up quickly, like you?" Cersei's eyes were shining with anticipation. "You want to go to the other world too?" Tyrion looked at his bitch sister. She was so seductive. If she really went to the other world, his cheap brother-in-law would probably be cheated on. "Can you?" Cersei's seductive eyes woke him up. "It's hard to work outside." He sighed. "It's easy to stay at home, but there's no future. Your main body is still being tortured in hell." Tyrion really didn't want to be burdened by this burden. "My sentence won't be reduced while I'm out." Tyrion was helpless. He said vaguely, "I'll keep it in mind. I'll fight for you if there's an opportunity." On the way to the 7 hells, Tyrion saw many familiar faces. Some of them were being tortured in fire or boiling oil. Some of them were managing the evil spirits as reapers. The dead spirits who were being tortured asked him for help. If he ignored them, they would curse him and curse him viciously. The reapers weren't that hostile. They would greet him excitedly when they saw him. He also greeted his old friends one by one. Other than the evil spirits, there were many strange natives in hell. In the ice hell, the pale other ghosts looked at him coldly. In the endless sea, he saw Yuluin's giant octopus and the seductive siren with sharp teeth and claws. "Hell species have become so plentiful," he muttered. In the distance, a sailboat was sailing quickly but silently. A familiar female voice smiled and said, "Every time the stars converge, there will be hellish creatures joining in. In the past few thousand years, from 600 to 700 years to 1,000 years, there will be large-scale star converges." As soon as she finished speaking, a white boat that seemed to be made of white bones stopped in front of him. "Asha." Tyrion was surprised. The woman in leather armor standing at the bow of the boat. Wasn't she the valiant female pirate? Ha, I knew it. My acquaintances will be surprised when they see me for the first time." Asha laughed. "Didn't you go to heaven?" he asked curiously. Asha didn't even live past 120 years old. She had received an atonement scroll long ago and went to heaven. Asha waved at him. When he got on the deck, she said, "Heaven is too boring, especially for time in. 5,000 years ago, the Grey Sea King decided to reincarnate. His divinity and divine power were given to me. A few years later, the Nether River was born in hell, separating the 6th and 7th layers. I thought it was an opportunity, so I applied to be a ferryman. Nether River. Tyrion lowered his head. As expected, he saw a vast black river of floating grey skeletons and vengeful spirits. Why is there the Nether River? I didn't see it in the first 6 layers of hell. He was puzzled. The Nether River is the blood vessel of hell. It's still growing. One day, it will connect the entire 7 layers of hell, and even take root in the unpredictable abyss. Asha approached him, bringing with her a cold aura. She whispered, "Hell is alive. It has life." Tyrion was deep in thought. He pointed at the vengeful spirits in the river and said, "What's wrong with them?" Asha's face was full of disdain. She said, "They are all oathbreakers. If they violate the Nether River oath, they will be devoured by the Nether River. As long as it's reasonable, there's a possibility of a holy oath being broken. However, the Nether River oath can't be changed. Humans who know this characteristic are more and more fond of swearing in the name of the Nether River, especially the evil contract that summons Hell's devils. They think that they can perfectly control Hell's devils through the Nether River oath, but they don't think that any oath is directed at both parties." When they reached the other side of the river, Asha even invited her old friends to her house. On the cliff by the sea, there was a dark castle shrouded in black smoke. It was very similar to Pike City in the world of the living. Burning human heads above the door were candles. Deformed and ugly devils were male servants who specialized in manual labor. The beautiful female deviant ghosts served as maids, serving their masters and guests. There were also singers and poets who fell into hell. They played musical instruments and babbled, playing beautiful music for them. Other than Asha herself, her grandson, granddaughter-in-law, and several great-grandchildren lived with her. They are all reserve ferrymen of the Nether River. When the Nether River spreads to the upper 6 layers, they will need ferrymen to enter hell or cross layers in hell. Some of them came down from heaven, some are successful wizards, and some have finished their sentences in hell and came here to seek refuge with me. Asha introduced them to the dumbstruck dwarf. Tyrion's mouth twitched. You Greyjoy monopolized the job of ferryman. Sigh, this job of ferryman is hard and tiring, and there's not much profit. Other than us time in, no one is willing to do it. Asha sighed as she asked the female servants to bring up plates of delicacies and jars of agar. In a short while, the nearly 20-meter-long wooden table was filled with dishes. There was roasted suckling pig, stewed beef brisket with tomatoes, baked snails with cream, red fish sashimi, steamed pork with preserved vegetables, braised five-flour, Western, Chinese, other world delicacies, all kinds of dishes, more than 100. The dwarf could not help but gulp. These dishes were all of the highest quality and the purest power of incense. They were the manifestation of the faith of the people. They were more delicious and nutritious than real delicacies. Where did you get so much power of incense? He asked in shock. Asha said casually, it's fine if you're familiar with it, but of course you have to pay if you're unfamiliar with it. If we meet a fat sheep, we'll increase the price when the boat reaches the center of the river. If they don't pay, we'll throw them into the river. Anyway, those who go to hell are not good people. Sometimes, we meet a dead person who swore an oath of the river Styx wailing in the river. We'll smash his head with an oar and pick up his magic power, divinity, and magic device. These can be exchanged for a large amount of power of incense from the messengers. Tyrion was stunned. Didn't you say it was hard and tiring, and there was no profit? Isn't this illegal? This is hell. The rules and laws of hell are different from the secular world. Think about it, there are so many true gods in the world of the living. Why do you want to bring in Mirko to compete with Lalo? Asha said meaningfully. You know a lot. The dwarf was shocked. We locals are not as talented as the geniuses of other worlds, but we have many connections. Many angels, many true gods, they're all my old friends. For example, you. For example, now, tell me about the upper universe. Asha smiled proudly. After feasting at Asha's house and recounting his adventures, Tyrion waddled down to the depths of the seventh hell, his belly bulging, and his body swaying. In the desolate desert, he saw Mirko using his magic power to raise a hill on the ground. He stood at the top of the hill and gave a speech loudly. The dwarf did not go up to greet him. Mirko, Soren, and a large number of fallen Mayas who had entered this world had their memories refreshed. They did not remember their old friend who had accompanied them for tens of billions of years. It was not that the more vicious one was when they were alive, the stronger one would be when they fell into hell after death. It was also not that the stronger one was, the better one's life in hell. Hell was essentially a place of sin, pain, and punishment. The more evil one was when they were alive, the more painful their life in hell would be. The stronger one was, the greater the shackles of hell. Even the Mad King and Riga were no exception. In a long row of caves in the prison, Tyrion met his father, brother, and adoptive father again. Where have you been all these years? Where's the incense? Where's the merit? Second brother Wei shouted from afar. Get lost. I won't give you any incense. The Mad King scolded his son and shouted at the dwarf, You've earned a lot of merit in the outside world, haven't you? Give it all to me, give it all to me. Hell is too bitter, I can't take it anymore. They were not burned by fire or fried in oil. Instead, they were locked in a dry cave of 100 square meters. Their necks and ankles were tied with a chain of pain. Like a data cable, the chain of pain transmitted all the punishments and pain in the world to them in turn. This included but was not limited to the pain and sin they had inflicted on others when they were alive. Now, it had multiplied by several times. Year after year, it never stopped. This was a special treatment given to them by Dany. The pain was no less than the others, but they did not have to show their faces in public. They barely managed to retain some dignity. The main thing was that they did not want her to lose face. Among the three of them, only Riga's performance was better. He could still maintain the elegance and etiquette of a crown prince. He squeezed out a smile on his pale face. Tyrion, where have you been all these years? Have you been well? There has been wind and rain, but there have also been gains. I've become a true god now. As he spoke, Tyrion secretly glanced at the stone prison opposite him. Tywin's father was sitting cross-legged and was also looking at him quietly. He was expressionless. Did he feel proud of his achievements? As soon as their eyes met, Tyrion inexplicably withdrew his gaze timidly. What's the use of being a true god? That unfilial daughter is a deity king. Quick, take it out. How much merit? How much incense? I only want merit. I only want to be free. The Mad King's face was filled with madness. Tyrion shook his head. There's no merit. How can there be merit after robbing someone else's god of creation? Following the will of the heavens in the other world could also earn merit, just like how Mad Prince Brandon sought the help of the Child of Destiny back then. However, Tyrion definitely could not get merit from Eru. Thousands of years, no merit at all. Second brother Wei's handsome face twisted into an evil spirit. Tyrion sighed inwardly. He now understood why his sister did not show mercy to these people outside the law. Some people deserve to go to hell. Robbing a god of creation. There should be a lot of benefits, right? Give me some of the profits, the Mad King shouted. The Song of Laws and Divinity cannot help you relieve your pain, Tyrion said. I want to be a demon king. I want to be like demon Circe and derive joy from looking down on all demons. Give me the laws and let me be crowned as a king. I will build a new iron throne with bones. Although the Mad King was crazy, he was not stupid. Second brother Wei's eyes glowed. He shouted excitedly, "Dear brother Tyrion, give me a law. I want to be a demon king too." The word brother gave Tyrion goosebumps. Once you become a demon king, you will never be free, Riga advised. The Mad King pointed at Tyrion and cursed. Relying on this unfilial son, I will never be free. I might as well sink completely. There will at least be some joy. After scolding Tyrion, he began to scold his eldest son as usual. I must have been blind to think that you were the savior and put all my hope on you. If I had handed you over to Stark and Robert, they would definitely not have rebelled immediately. Then I would have focused on raising my unfilial daughter. After the dragon hatches, who would dare to rebel against me? Now, I am most likely the savior of the world. Riga said bitterly, to be honest, I wish that you would not put your hopes on me. I can't take it. He. After watching the Mad King's performance, Tywin could not help but chuckle softly. The two of them had been friends for decades when they were alive and thousands of years after they died. The Mad King immediately understood the reason behind his laughter. Are you laughing at me? Ha ha ha, you old bastard, you helped me raise my son for nothing. Ha ha ha, you were shot in the crotch by my own son. Ha ha ha, you killed my whole family, and the deviants destroyed the entire Casterly Rock City for me. Ha ha ha. Tywin's old face began to twist. Ha, ha, ha. Someone in the cell laughed again. Tyrion took a closer look and saw that it was an old acquaintance. It was Hor's sister's ex-husband, the wild boar killer, Robert. This idiot still has the face to laugh. None of the 3 children are his. In the end, even the Baratheon family disappeared from the Westeros. Second brother Wei mocked. Robert's face turned red. His eyes were spitting fire, but he was speechless. You're stronger than him. If you had been honest, you could have won with the Divine King's sister, but you had to be a devil and sent yourself to the 7th level of hell. In the cell next to Robert, an old man sneered. It was another old acquaintance. Robert's good foster father, Jon Arryn. He was a good foster father, yes. But he also betrayed the oath he made to the Mad King, so he went to hell. The Mad King glared at him and mocked, "How are you better than my son? You always have to stick your neck out." Stark was urged by the scholar to rebel against me, but I didn't even want to talk to you. You just had to get involved. May I ask, where is Arryn in the valley now? The best foster father of the 7 kingdoms was silent with a sad expression. Good father. Second brother Wei murmured emotionally. No matter what happens now, at least we were once glorious. In the history of the Westeros, there will always be a place for Theon Bella. Erlu could not hold it in anymore. He wanted to stand with his elder brother against a common enemy. You were beaten to a pulp by me, the Emperor. What glory do you have? If I had lived for a few more decades, would have slaughtered High Court Tyrell first, and then joined forces with the Dragon Queen to fight against the ghosts. Who knows, there might still be a lion sitting on the Iron Throne right now. Emperor Joffrey chuckled from another cell. Forget it. You're just a bastard who can't even get hard. Who in the 7 kingdoms will listen to you? Old Rose mocked. Joffrey wanted to argue, but Tywin glared at him and said, "You're just a lonely soul without any children. You can't even take in a single breath of incense. You're the son of the Sword God and the Devil Queen. Why are you wasting your breath on her?" Old Rose's smile froze. Her eyes were filled with sorrow. Sigh, it's been a few thousand years. What's there to argue about? In our generation or two, other than that bastard Dowlang, who else met a good end? Horse Tully sighed. He was the Duke of Riverrun City who had no male children and had his grandson inherit the family name. When he said that, all the ghosts fell silent. Wasn't that right? Including the Royal Territory and the Iron Islands, there were a total of 9 families in the Westeros. However, other than Dowlang's son Martell, Stark, Arryn, Theon Bella, Tully, Lannister, Targaryen, Tyrell, and Greyjoy had almost no children or even completely no children. The number of family leaders and clansmen who went to hell was even more numerous. After a long while, Tywin sighed. I completely understand Dowlang's character. It's not that he doesn't want to do anything, but he's too cautious. If he's too cautious, he'll miss good opportunities time and time again. If he was slightly more decisive, he wouldn't even be able to reincarnate, let alone live a long life and live a carefree life as a god. He'd definitely be like us now, imprisoned for his crimes and unable to turn the tables. In the end, it's the game of power that harms people. If I could go back in time, I'd definitely be a good lord, treat the people well, be loyal to the king, and believe in the Holy Mother. Duke Tully sighed. Rumble without any warning, hell shook like a sieve. The sky cracked open and closed. Flames and purple lightning flashed in the cracks. At this moment, the great Tao seemed to be crying in sorrow and joy. The ghosts were confused and did not know what was going on. Tyrion was shocked and doubtful. He sank his consciousness into the sea of laws. After a while, he exclaimed, "She's transforming into the way." What? Rhaegar said in confusion. I seem to hear the Megalosaurus crying in sorrow. You can hear it. Tyrion was shocked and smiled bitterly. You didn't hear it wrong. Our god of creation is dying. What? The Mad King jumped 3 feet high and almost broke free from the chain of pain. Don't be agitated. This isn't an accident. Her death is different from your understanding of death. She's probably leaving. What's different? Where is she going? Rhaegar approached the prison door and asked worriedly. The one who died is God King Dany Rise of the Great Seven Gods world, but Tao Seeker Dany Rise obtained great freedom, Tyrion said. Unfilial son, speak clearly. The Mad King shouted. To put it simply, she can't get anything from this world. Cutting off all ties with it will make it easier for her to integrate into other worlds, higher and more wondrous worlds, worlds that can benefit her greatly. Cutting off all ties with the world. The Mad King was stunned. He roared, what about me? I'm her father, but I didn't get any benefits. She only came to see me a few times in all these years. How can she cut off all ties? Sigh, even if she doesn't leave, she won't give you any benefits. Also, cutting off ties doesn't mean we won't see each other again. I'll go out and take a look. I'll visit you another day. Tyrion said this and disappeared from the 7 hells. In the 9 heavens, Dany was saying goodbye to her 6 children. Yes, 5 dragon babies and 1 cheap son. This world is like a box. It can't contain me at this level. Rhaegar, you're the sun god. I'll leave the light of creation to you. Dany's body became partially transparent, about 1/50th of her body. Rhaegar's body shone brightly, and his aura increased. His aura was so strong that it far surpassed the total number of true gods in the 7 gods world. Mother. His eyes were filled with tears, and he couldn't speak. Dany sighed and turned to the 5 children. You're not talented enough. I can only give you more inheritance. Her body became partially transparent again. The songs of the 4 elements were given to Little White, Little Green, Little Red, and Little Gold. There were also 40,000 choruses, 10,000 for each dragon. The great path is endless. A mere 10,000 songs of the laws is only the starting point for the god of creation. Work harder in the future. Tyrion and the Targaryens, who had rushed over, felt their mouths twitch. Even Rhaegar stopped crying. He looked at the Megalosaurus brothers in a daze. Blackie, you're the boss. You have to take on the responsibility of the eldest son. Dany gave him all the remaining power. A complete path of first flame, a complete path of spacetime, the path of slaughter that was comprehended from the 4 celestial slaying swords, and the path of abyss, black hole, that was close to first flame. Dany was really clean. There was nothing left. Even her body and thought waves had completely disappeared. However, her voice came from beyond time. White Knights, Blood Guards, hear me. Barristan, Bran, and the others hurriedly stepped out. The sacred oath will never be broken. I hope that you will continue to walk with me. This is our highest honor. Their voices were trembling. At this moment, they felt more at ease than ever. They also felt happier and more satisfied than ever. Before I return, you will be the guards of the 7 gods' great world, Dany said gently. Understood. They looked at each other and smiled. They retreated briskly. I'm leaving. You, take care. Mother. The 5 Megalosaurus wailed together. The world shook. The year that Dany left was also the year that the Song of Ice and Fire world left the lower universe and entered the upper universe again. It was also because of entering the upper universe that the 5 Megalosaurus could be reunited. About 2,000 years later, the Holy Mother of Faith found Bran and said, "Do you see it? You mean, the shadow of the world?" Bran was uncertain. Ever since he changed Robb's fate and touched the timeline, Dany took away his power to enter the river of time. Now he could vaguely see the reflection of a world under the river, but he could not be sure what it represented. It's not a shadow. It's the 7 gods' great world 2,000 years ago, the Holy Mother said. I don't quite understand. The Holy Mother thought for a while and said, have you ever tried to use a wooden bucket to draw water from a well? The bucket would be lowered, filled with water, and lifted up again to complete a water draw. If there was a gecko on the wall of the well, it could see the bucket pass by twice in the process, go down, and come up. Now, we are in the gecko's perspective, standing on the river, and seeing the other side of the river, another 7 gods' great world passing by us. Bran thought for a while, but then frowned and asked, if the world is the bucket, and the rise and fall of the world is equivalent to the bucket rising and falling in the well, then, who is the gecko? Without the observation of the gecko, how can we see the reflection now? Who do you think is qualified to be the gecko? The Holy Mother of Faith sighed like a human. I don't understand the purpose of this. Could it be that her future self chose the best path for her past self? Bran asked. If she had mastered the level 1 first flame, she might have done that, but at a higher level. Do you think she only mastered the level 1 first flame now? She went to the endless cold abyss to pursue the source of the white frost. I'm afraid, her level must be beyond our imagination. Bran the White Knight said bitterly. No, you can still imagine, the past can't be changed, the past can be changed, which is more beneficial to her. Of course the past, but Bran was stunned before he could finish his sentence. No. Only the losers want to change the past, she is the big winner, the past never being changed is the best for her. He muttered. But the past has been changed. He held his head and howled. The Holy Mother took out a rope, tied one knot after another, and then cut the rope twice. The knotted part fell unburned into nothingness. Then, she gently wiped the 2 broken pieces of rope, and reconnected them into a perfect rope without knots. Do you understand? The past can't be changed, the past can be changed, neither is the best choice for her. Whatever she wants, she will do, that is the best for her. The Holy Mother held up the rope for him to see. When change is beneficial to her, she will change. When the process and the ending are good, she will make it irreversible. Bran's mouth twitched a few times, but he couldn't refute. After today, the world will completely lose the history of falling into the bottom of the universe. That time period, like the knot, was cut and destroyed. The break point was 2,000 years ago, when we first entered the upper universe. The Holy Mother said. Bran murmured, in other words, the long night, the eve of the Battle of Smoke Sea, you saved the world at the critical point of falling into the bottom of the universe. That is the true timeline of our world. Yes, in the future, we will enter the top universe and meet the powerful gods of creation. When they observe our world, they will see this timeline. The Song of Ice and Fire, from the next moment, will never appear. But At this point, the believer hesitated for a while, then sighed, I have feelings. I see, I am the God of creation. As the God of creation of the seven gods' great world, how can I not have feelings? She disappeared, completely disappeared from existence in time. She said, she will come back for us. She will never break her sacred oath. Bran said excitedly. Of course she will come back. She only cut off the karma with the seven gods' great world. You will still know her as her White Knight. Your history with her will always be there. The believer said sadly. Only it, completely cut off from her. I don't understand. Bran murmured. Do you know the Transmigrator? She is not a native of the seven gods' great world, but a transmigrator from Earth. She replaced Dany Rise at that point in time, and that is how you came into contact with her. And before she transmigrated, the seven gods already existed. Think carefully, didn't Dany Rise first call herself the child of the seven gods, and until the end of the long night, she was the spokesperson of the seven gods? Bran held his forehead, his mind in a mess. It seems so, but he didn't know how to say it. This is history, this is the truth. Because I am indeed the creator, and I was the one who helped her end the long night. The believer, the Holy Mother, said faintly. Countless years ago, the seven gods appeared, and discussed with the old fish Liangmu, and taught humans to believe in themselves. But it wasn't until a few years before the long night that Dany transmigrated. But I remember, could it be that my memory has been altered? Bran said in a low voice. No, your memory has not changed. The Holy Mother opened her palm, and a bright flame rose in front of Bran's eyes. This is. Bran was mesmerized, and stared at the orange flame in a daze, as if he could see the entire world inside. Give it to Dany Rise. The Holy Mother said. What? Bran was confused. Give it to Dany Rise. 2,000 years ago, let her survive the Smoke Sea crisis, and use this flame to reforge the world. The Holy Mother said. Why me? Bran mumbled. Because 2,000 years ago, you owed Dany Rise your life, so you are the one who received the flame, because you made a mistake, and tried to use my power to change the past, Rob's incident, so I punished you, and ordered you to send the flame to the past. This karma sequence. Bran's mind was in a mess. A complete karma is a closed circle. Can you tell the beginning and end of the circle? A circle has no beginning and end. The Holy Mother said faintly. Bran tried to grasp the last bit of clarity in his mind, and asked loudly, what about the true gods from the lower universes? The Holy Mother pointed at the sky, and said faintly, why does the seven gods' great world have the word great? Because in the astral world, every star represents a small world, and small worlds can also give birth to true gods. The so-called other worlds are all misconceptions and illusions of mortals. They are only worlds in Middle-earth, but they have always been a part of the seven gods' great world. Don't believe it? The origin of the first flame can testify. Those worlds are like different fruits on a big tree, but in the end, they were born from the same first flame, which is the one in your hand. Bran was speechless. In the next instant, karma formed a closed circle, and he began to instinctively accept the truth of history. And you're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.